No, that's not it.
Minor update. They took the wrong line. It's gonna be a little bit longer.
No, close though. Yeah, it's similar.
Okay, let's get off.
Let's get the hell out of here.
All right. I think a distance from nearest Shinkansen is good. I think it clears that line in a way that is pretty convenient.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Another question. Am I closer or further to a Shinkansen? I am basically right on top of the Shinkansen line. It goes right through my station, so I'm definitely closer.
Sam is closer. Closer. Okay.
Okay, so that means he's like basically right off the Shinkansen line.
Yeah.
Now we've got it down to really just a couple of stations.
Yeah. So it's one of these.
There's a train in 5 minutes to Musashi or Wawa.
Yeah, let's get on it.
Go.
I'll say it's starting to get a little bit late.
The sun is going down.
It's, I think we're still okay. But I am starting to get...
We only have about 45 minutes before the sun sets.
Yeah, and also doing it in a dense, such a city area is going to be really...
Yeah.
Like, there are way more streets.
Yeah.
Like, the thing that dense metro areas are best at is the end game.
Yep.
Another 3 card pulls. 2, 3. Curse the Bird Guide.
Curse of the Bird Guide. You have one chance to film a bird for as long as possible, up to 15 minutes straight. If at any point the bird leaves the frame, your timer is stopped. The seekers must then film a bird for the same amount of time or longer before asking another question.
15-minute bonus, discard 2, draw 3. You know, I think I'll take the discard 2, draw 3, and see if I can optimize my time bonuses at this point. All right, 1, 2, 3, 10-minute bonus, 10-minute bonus, 15-minute. Wow, that worked out well. All right, so I have 15, 25, 35, 50, 70, 80. 80 minutes of time bonuses. Not bad.
Yeah, I don't think that it's here.
Train in 5 minutes to Nishirawa. You want to just go?
Yeah, I think let's just keep riding the line and checking before we ask any more questions. Adam, I think I see it.
You think you see it?
I think I might have where? Over there. I can't quite see it anymore.
And that would mean that it would be on, not on this strip. That's gotta be it. That's gotta be it. Yeah, I saw it too. Over there. So we're gonna need to go up 1 station. It's gotta be it, right there. Right there.
I think that's it, yeah.
Okay, so we'll connect up.
Do you know where that is?
Yeah, I do. It's Naka Urawa.
27.
Sumimasen. Okay, so we need to go back. Yeah, this is us.
Sam, I think we might just finally have you.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
yeah, that's it. All right, this is us off here, and then connect up 1 and stop. Let's kick it. Here, it's over here. That's it. We gotta get out of the station before we can ask a question.
Final end game of the game. Let's hope we can make it a quick one.
Okay, what do you think? You want to do a 1 mile tentacle?
Yeah. What kind of tentacle?
Here, you take this, I'll figure it out. Hospital's gonna give us the best directionality for,
Is it worth the cards?
in my opinion, yeah.
Okay.
God, I wish I hadn't lost my glasses.
Do you? Because you kind of have a similar
Yeah.
description as me. You can try my sunglasses. Plus, you look so cool. Show the audience how cool you look. You look like a bug. Lemons.
He's responded. Hayashi. Okay, so we want to head up.
Wait, really quickly, ask for a photo of the tallest thing you can see before you can curse us, just in case.
Okay. We've sent tallest thing you can see and he didn't curse us, so this should be enough to find him.
All right, let's start heading towards that hospital.
Okay. There's a park, Ben. Maybe we should start by checking the park.
Okay, start heading towards the park. Sam, are you in the park? Please just be in the park.
I'm only gonna put these on when I need to be like searching closely. Because while they do make me see better, they also make things darker.
Yeah.
It's some random fucking building, so it doesn't seem like he's in the park.
Okay. I mean, this building is just like a house.
Yeah. It's quite generic.
But also, if that's the tallest thing you can see, that actually does narrow things down a bit.
I guess, yeah, because it's like from here I can see that. That's taller.
Right.
So we can't be anywhere that you can see that. Can't be anywhere you can see that.
I think with tallest thing street...
Is that it? Is that the tallest building?
It does look a lot like the right house.
I might not quite be right. But it looks really similar, doesn't it?
It does.
I just scared a man.
That was a normal man. That was a normal
I just scared a poor man.
man. Not Sam. Sam's not a normal man.
No, I don't think it is this, but almost.
It's very similar, but I suppose it makes sense that there are several houses that have that kind of look out here. Should we ask something else? We still don't have a...
Yeah. Photo of you?
Yeah, photo of him. Get a photo of him.
Does not seem like we should be walking here.
No.
It's not that, is it? The back of that house?
I don't think so. Again, it's like
No.
a similar building.
It's very similar. He's under something.
It's under a bridge.
Okay, we should be able to find that. Under what bridge can you see a house?
Well, there's a bridge over there.
Oh? No, it's not this bridge.
Not this bridge.
Oh, I hate endgames in dense areas.
Yeah, there's a lot to look at.
What is he under? Let's go this way and then turn left. I think it'd be close for it to count, but there's definitely a bridge there by the station.
Let's look at the bridges near... I mean,
Let's go to the river.
there are definitely bridges on the river. And where there are bridges, there may be Sam.
Okay. There's actually a smaller river that I think might be a better fit.
Okay.
Just one street over.
Right.
We just need to cross.
I think they're almost here.
Oh yeah, look at this. Look at this little river.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Sam,
Like,
are
let's
you under
walk
there?
alongside this river, maybe.
Sam.
But none of the houses matter.
No.
But I think it's worth a shot. We certainly think it could be this river. It's like he would really barely be hit by it. Oh no, but I guess he would be. Oh, there he is.
Hi.
Wait, turn the flash on. You can't see him.
There he is.
Hi.
Hey, Sam.
How's it going?
That was really annoying when you moved.
Oh,
Yeah?
man.
Oh.
All right, fellas. I think that it's time for us to go back to Tokyo Station.
Yeah.
It's something very important. But we've taken so many trains, this time we should do the teleport. Are you ready? That was an option the whole time. 1, 2, 3.
Whoa.
Whoa, we're back at Tokyo Station.
We made it back safe and sound.
Ben, as the person with the longest hiding time
Yes.
of 13 hours and 9 minutes, I think, pretty long, we can now congratulate you on being the winner of Jetlag Season 12. Woo!
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I think that this means that we are all tied for wins.
That is true.
I think we're all tied at 5.
This really raises the stakes for next season.
It's true, it does.
Ben, I did have a feeling this would happen because I believe in you. So when Adam and I were on a run earlier,
Yeah.
we saw it was actually crazy coincidence. They had a machine that was said the Jetlag Season 12 trophy.
That's true, we can cut to that footage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making this up. Perfect.
Whoa. They really have everything in this country.
They really do.
It's amazing.
Whoa. This is amazing.
Open it up.
Oh my God. How did they fit that in
I
there?
can't believe that's only 500 yen.
Yeah, the yen is really weak right now.
It is not doing
Oh
well.
my God, that's a lot of metal.
So Ben, it's been 6 days. You've been on so many trains,
That's true.
a really long plane ride before. And I guess we both want to know, how are you feeling?
I mean, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good. I guess there's this one thing. I'm feeling pretty chicken wings!
Hope you enjoy playing hide and seek, if you want, I guess.
And we'll see you in season 13! Man, we're making a lot of seasons.
Oh my God. Okay, bye. Mwah.
This is your Hugo stance. That's actually not so bad. Come closer. Yeah, like there.
Thank you so much for watching this entire season of Jetlag Hide and Seek. We really appreciate it. And we have something very special to yap about.
I'd say so.
We are really excited about this. We've talked about this throughout the season, but we have taken our hide and seek format and we have adapted it so that it can be played theoretically anywhere in the world. Wherever you live, you can get our hide and seek game and you can organize a game with your friends and you can play
Senior brother, you helped me out of a troublesome situation that day, and I remember your kindness dearly. Autumn is about to begin soon, and I made a special robe for you. Senior brother, I hope you won't mind it. After she spoke, Murong Yunlan walked up to Chen Chen and personally handed him the robe. For some reason at this moment, the living room plunged into coldness. Zhang Ji sat in the corner, keeping his eyes glued onto the floor, as if there were an ant on the floor. Junior sister, you're so thoughtful. Chen Chen grabbed the robe and placed it in a storage ring. Since she had made it personally, he couldn't bring himself to turn it down. Zhao Xiaya looked tough on the surface, but was actually gentle by nature, while Murong Yunlan was the exact opposite. Both of them were beautiful. Unfortunately, if the threat of the Tianyun clan had not been eradicated, he would not be in the mood to fall in love. Otherwise, if his spouse died in the future, he would be really miserable. Ahem. Besides, he was only 16 years old and his body had not fully developed yet. Junior sister Moron, you're from a rich family. I didn't expect that you'd know how to sew, but this is ultimately just a trivial skill. Don't hamper your cultivation because of this. Standing at the side, Zhao Shaya remarked in a clear and cold voice as she glanced at Murong Yunlan with jealousy and envy in her eyes. Due to the fact that she came in a hurry, she did not have a chance to prepare a gift. There were a lot of valuable things in her storage bag, but they couldn't be compared to a handmade robe. Humph. Cunning little girl. Is it a big deal that you know how to sew? I'll go back and learn how to sew too. On the other hand, Murong Yulon maintained a look of composure as she answered, You don't have to worry, senior sister. The supreme elder of the clan has already taken me in as a disciple. Also, needlework may be a trivial skill, but it trains one's patience and allows one to control their temper. Watching the two girls continuously take jabs at each other, Qin Shun glowered at Zhang Ji furiously. As his underling, Zhang Ji ought to intervene and say something to ease the awkwardness of the situation. But what is this kid doing? He was still immersed in looking at the ground with his head hung low. This kid can't be taught. Just when Chun Chun was thinking about how to deal with the next situation, a clear voice suddenly came from outside the courtyard. Senior Sister Zhao, things won't stay the same forever. Don't bully the weak. As soon as his voice sounded, everyone in the room fell silent. It was so quiet that they could hear a pin drop. Morong Yunlan's pretty face instantly became extremely flushed as she wished she could dig a hole in the ground and jump into it. Chun Chin's mentality was incredible. The repeater, the morning glory, has begun again. Can't you wait until they've left? Are you saying this now because you don't think it's embarrassing enough? Although Chun Chin broke down mentally, he had lived through 2 lifetimes after all. He explained in a thick-skinned manner, I'm rearing a flower demon in the medicinal herb field which likes to spout nonsense. Everyone, please don't mind. After he finished speaking, the morning glory spoke again. This time, its voice was extremely low, mimicking Zhao Xiaoya's voice. Junior Sister Murong, I advise you to avoid coming to this main peak too often. Don't disturb Senior Brother Chin. After hearing those words, Chin Chin rolled his eyes and leaned back in his chair. Forget it. Do what you want. I give up on healing you too. None of my underlings are reliable. There was an extremely awkward ambience in the main hall. Apart from Chin Chin, the other 3 were staring at the ceiling. After a long while, Murong Yulan couldn't take being in the room anymore. With a flushed face, she stood up and said, Senior Brother Chin Chin, I have to go back to cultivate. Goodbye. Moments after she spoke, Zhao Xiaya stood up too. Senior Brother, I also have to go back to take my medicine. Goodbye. After Zhao Xiaya finished speaking, the 2 girls hurriedly dashed out of the courtyard before Chin Chin answered, for fear that the morning glory in the medicinal herb field would say something that would make them feel ashamed of themselves again. After the 2 women left, Zhang Ji carefully raised his head and heaved a long sigh of relief. Watching Zhang Ji, Chin Chin flew into a rage. It was his first time encountering such a daft underling. Also, what do you mean you look scared? You almost made your sister marry me back then, that's all. Do you have to be so scared? Brother, it's the same as I imagined at first. An intense scene. Zhang Ji patted his chest with a solemn expression. Enough, don't talk to me about this nonsense. How are you getting on with what I instructed you to do? Chin Chin asked, hurriedly changing the subject as he didn't want to talk about that nonsense anymore. Hearing Chin Chin's question, Zhang Ji's expression instantly crumbled. Big brother, I did as you instructed, and as a result, I failed to warn that alchemy elder. Instead, he made the potion extraordinarily successful. Chin Chin secretly heaved a sigh of relief after hearing his words. He didn't mess up after all, and the outcome was just like what Chin Chin expected. So did he give you something? Chin Chin asked again. He remembered that the system mentioned that the alchemy elder would give 2 foundation building elixirs and some other book. Hearing Chin Chin's words, Zhang Ji waved his hand and answered, Brother, he said that he wanted to give me foundation building elixirs for thanking me. But how can I accept his own items? After all, he has offended you, brother. So, in the end, I didn't accept it and even scolded him on the spot. However, don't worry because I didn't mention your name. After he spoke, Zhang Ji put on a proud expression, as if he was waiting to be praised. After hearing his words, Chin Chin looked at the ceiling, unsure of what to say. After a long time, he finally responded, Zhang Ji, come to my place to study for 2 hours every night from now on. You have to be educated. Also, in the future, go out and communicate with others more often. Otherwise, you'll become a fool. Do you understand? Okay, but brother, after I scolded him, the alchemy elder told me that I have quite a character, and he even insisted on taking me as his disciple. I thought that I'd be acknowledging a thief as my teacher if I agreed, so I turned him down, but he insisted and even informed the entire clan. I came to see you because of this matter. Brother, can you tell him not to accept me as a disciple? Zhang Ji looked extra aggrieved. Qinshan looked at him, slammed the table, and then hollered furiously, "No." Huh? Zhang Ji asked, completely stunned. The alchemy elder and I have reconciled. There's nothing wrong with you becoming his disciple. Zhang Ji, did you know that the alchemy elder is the second wealthiest person in the clan besides the clan master? Even a few supreme elders are no match for him. He also has a high position, which even the clan master respects. Qinshan explained, expecting better from Zhang Ji. But, no buts, it is settled then. Hurry back to apologize to your master. After being stuck in a daze for a long while, Zhang Ji seems to have thought of something. The look in his eyes showed that he was moved by something. Brother, I will cultivate well and not drag you down. After he spoke, Zhang Ji left the courtyard resolutely. This kid has finally become a little brighter. Staring at Zhang Ji's back, Qinshan shook his head slightly, and then his expression suddenly became ferocious. He then turned his head to look at the little morning glory in the medicinal herb field. Little thing, you need to be educated too. Be careful, I might sell you one day. The little morning glory in the medicinal herb field obviously understood what Qinshan meant as its branch immediately drooped down. Humph. Qinshan humped coldly, turned around, and made his way into the cultivation room. He still had to study foundation building and did not have time to continue educating the morning glory. Upon returning to the cultivation room, Qinshan immediately found a few books related to foundation building and began to study them. The difficulty of building a foundation depends on the amount of ethereality contained in the practitioner's body. The higher the tier of chi training, the more difficult it is to build a foundation. The foundation building elixir contains a massive amount of ethereality. With the help of this ethereality, the chi cultivator's diaphragm will enter a special state for a short period of time, pushing the cultivator to establish.
Yo, how's it going, Amadeus? How you doing today? Doing okay. Just playing a bit of World of Warcraft. Dude. I'm doing good. Can't complain. Yeah. I had to go do grocery shopping earlier today, so I started the stream a little bit late. Steak maybe, not really into lobster. Lobster or what's that called? Shrimp. Lobster and shrimp, I'm not really into those. Yeah, I'm not too much of a fan of a lot of seafoods. I do eat some of them, but not a lot of them. Oh, come on. Why the freak you? Top 5. Hmm. Yeah, my top 5 would have to be steak, burger, steak, burgers, and well, a lot of meat from cows. If it's from a cow, then I'm down. God dang. I just finished 8, so kind of feeling a bit I got the itis a little bit. I hate when this fucking tanks move.
His foundation. Seeing the introduction to foundation building, Chun frowned. The foundation establishment realm was different from other realms. The higher the talent, the more difficult it was to break through the foundation establishment and other realms. With his talent, it was already as difficult as ascending to heaven. The ethereality in the foundation building elixir was considered majestic for ordinary chi cultivators, but for Chin, it was ordinary. He swallowed it and absorbed a few spirit stones. As for the heavenly spirit bell stalagmite and the other heavenly treasures, the ethereality contained in them was too mild to achieve the effect of foundation building. If he wanted to build his foundation, he would need to refine a special foundation building elixir, or find heavenly treasures that likewise contained overbearing ethereality. Cultivation of immortality has finally taken its toll on me, a poor bug player. Chin sighed as the gaze in his eyes grew melancholic. Time passed like flowing water, and half a month had passed in a flash. On this day, Chin was just about to go out when he suddenly heard Xiao Wuyo's voice coming from the clan master hall. "Disciple, come to the main hall." Hearing these words, Chin hurriedly turned around, and moments later, he entered the clan master hall. Xiao Wuyo was in the main hall at this time, dressed differently than usual. "How's your progress going? Is there any progress in your foundation building?" "No, I feel like I'm about to enter the 21st tier of Chi training." Chin had a bitter expression. For the past half a month, he had been searching for heavenly treasures and did not have time to cultivate it all. However, he was extremely talented, and hence, his status of cultivation grew automatically even without cultivating. Xiao Wuyo couldn't help but chuckle after hearing this. Talented people have their own troubles too. That makes me feel much more at ease. The cultivation of immortality is not easy. We, cultivators of immortality, must be in awe of the heavens at all times. The higher the status of cultivation, the more so. You acted too casual before. "Master, you were right. But why did you ask me to come here today?" Chin asked after ascending helplessly. "I want to take you to see the world, and at the same time, see if you can solve your foundation."
Yeah, I'll definitely be
After he spoke,
trying to,
Xiao Wuyo did not wait for Chin's reaction
trying a little
and
bit
simply
later,
pulled him
in a couple
outside.
hours.
The moment he left the clan master hall,
I'm gonna get a
a
little
giant
bit of
sword came flying from out of nowhere.
World
When
of
Chin
Warcraft
saw it
in,
coming, he simply
and then,
jumped up onto it skillfully.
probably hop on
"Master,
for
where are we going?"
Fantasy Star
"To the
Online
border
for
of
like
Jisho and
for maybe
Yuzhou.
like 5-10
Remember
minutes
what
so
I
I can
told
do
you
the
a month ago?
dailies, and then
There's
I'll
a
hop
demon
on
dragon at the
to
peak of the Golden Core realm,
Final
at the
Fantasy.
border of Jizhou and Yuzhou. While recalling it, Chin's eyes lit up. He then asked, "Are we going to slay a dragon?" To be honest, Shinshin had never seen creatures like demon dragons in this world before, but he had once eaten carp that was about to gain sentience. Somewhat. The demon dragon has an inner elixir known as a dragon's pearl, and its inner ethereality is extremely overwhelming. It might even allow you to build your foundation successfully. Xiaoyo's words were vague, and he seemed to be hiding something. Shinshin didn't ask any further questions and simply remembered his master's kindness. An expert at the peak of the Golden Core realm could fly the sword quickly. In less than an hour, Xiaoyo brought Shinshin to a large river. The river was known as the Yu River, and it spanned thausands of miles in length. It was the boundary between Jizhou and Yuzhou. Ever since ancient times, it had always produced flood dragons.
I would like to get this
As soon as the two landed, a voice filled with discontent sounded from a spot near them. Wuyo, you're here. Why did you bring a kid along with you? What we're going to do today is a matter of life and death. The fewer people who know, the better. Hearing this voice, Shinshin subconsciously turned over his head to look, only to see a woman who was shrouded in white chiffon fabric, with her watery eyes exposed. However, her gaze was full of coldness as she walked over. Ruoxue, Shinshin is my only personal disciple, and also the future clan master of the Tianyun
So
clan.
it says two.
There's no need to hide anything from
two
him.
weapons.
Xiaoyo's expression was stiff,
two.
and his tone was mellow and gentle. Shinshin stood by the side quietly
no,
as he observed the two in their conversation.
This is for any
From
race.
the way the
Any
two
race can
addressed
get
each
this.
other, Shinshin could almost conclude that the two had previously had an affair
So
with each
any
other.
race can get
Furthermore,
any mount.
Xiaoyo's
You
expression
just
looked
need
like that of
the
a
right
henpecked man.
reputation. You
It
just
was
need
likely that the two of
the
them were
right
in a
amount of
relationship.
reputation.
No
or,
wonder Master had changed his
you can
clothes
purchase
before
it
going out
for
today.
gold
Turns out
on
he's here to meet
the
his
auction
lover.
house.
Shinshin murmured in his heart.
Or you can do
On the other hand,
the
Xiao
seasonal
Wuyo
events
introduced
and
Disciple.
get it through the
This
seasonal
is the clan
events.
master of the Yushui
But all
clan in
mounts
Yuzhou.
are available
She's an
for all
old friend
races.
of mine.
It's just that
You may address her as senior.
certain mounts,
Old friend.
certain races
Xiao Wuyo,
will
you
get
really know how to use
a
your words.
mount.
Let me ask you, are you really going to
Will
step
have a
into the
specific
nascent
mount
soul realm
that's
today?
considered
Yu
theirs,
Ruoxue
but
directly
everybody
interrupted
can get
Xiao
any
Wuyo
of this
nonchalantly.
mounts. So
Ruoxue, according
I
to the
can get
report, the Wuxing clan will
me
be
as a
pulling a
dwarf,
great
I can
move
get
in a month's time. If I don't
any
step into the
mounts from
nascent
any
soul
race.
realm,
I just
the
need the
Tianyun
right
clan
amount of
would never have a
reputation.
chance of fighting. Xiao Wuyo's tone was solemn, and he seemed ready to go all out without fearing death. Seeing this, Yu Ruoshue's cold gaze grew more tender as she muttered.
Well,
Do you
on
remember the gigantic sword sect?
the
Back
fragments in
then, the sect master of the
Behemoth's
gigantic
domain,
sword sect entered
it
the
said
nascent soul realm
two
and
weapons
refused
will
to join the
appear.
Wuxing clan. What happened in the end? They were ruined overnight, and the gigantic sword sect completely fell and was subsequently replaced by the divine blade sect. Doesn't matter. I'm here today to slay the dragon.
I think this
all
is
for
a
the sake of
seasonal
hiding
mount.
the fact
I'm
that I'm
not
going to
sure.
enter the nascent soul realm. No one from the Wuxing clan will find out. Xiaoyo's tone
Where's
was
my mouse?
composed.
There it is.
Shinshin was shocked to hear that the matter of the dragon slaying had a hidden agenda. To add to the chaos, the Wuxing clan previously annihilated the clan that had a member of the nascent soul realm. Obviously, the development strategy of the Wuxing clan was based on driving away the external forces and focusing on strengthening their inner clan. Even if they had to weaken their forces that defended against the demon clan, they had to ensure that the Wuxing clan dominated in the state of Jin. Since you've already made up your mind, I won't persuade you. I'll force that demon dragon out. Ruoxue said, looking at the calm river as the domineering aura within her body slowly became stronger.
Thinking more and more
Ruoxue,
about
wait.
turned
Yes?
WoW again.
Ruoxue turned
Looks like
around.
Final Fantasy
If something happens
14-ish.
to me, this disciple of mine
So,
will be entrusted to you. Be it
the
when I
combat
break
style
through the
is
nascent
similar
soul later, but when
because
facing the
Final
Wuxing
Fantasy
clan.
14,
Xiaoyo's tone was extremely earnest.
they
At this point, Shinshin's mood and emotions had become extremely
Yoshida-
complicated. At such a moment, his master actually entrusted him to his lover and the
he
leader
was
of another
basically
clan.
a WoW
It
fan
seemed
as
that
well,
the situation
and
within
he
the
decided to
Tianyun clan
go
was
with
much more difficult than
the
he had
combat
imagined.
style.
After hearing
a
his
similar
words,
combat style
Ruoxue
from
glanced
WoW.
at Shinshin before suddenly turning around again.
So yeah,
She
there's
then said,
there's
if something
similarities
happens to you, I will
between
take
the
this
combat
kid to the demon
styles
clan. Since
between
the Wuxing
WoW
clan is
and
heartless,
Final Fantasy
they shouldn't
14.
blame me for being nasty. She then raised her hand to the sky and quickly chanted an incantation,
Yeah, it's
after which
definitely
massive ripples and waves
a
surged
pretty
in the calm
fun
river.
game.
A few moments later, the roar of a dragon echoed from the center of the river, penetrating through heaven and earth. Boom. Immediately afterward, a 50 meters long black dragon that
The
was
hands-
as thick as a water
the
tank
hand mounts.
soared to the sky, engulfed by huge waves. It hung high in the sky. You Ruoxue, how dare you come and create trouble for me again? Have you forgotten how your companions ended up last time? The Black Flood Dragon spoke in human language with contempt in its large eyes that were like lanterns. Yu Ruashue smiled as she silently glared back at the Black Dragon with hatred. Moments later, Xiao Wuyo slowly began making his way towards the river. When he finally got close, he said out loud with a serious tone, "Black Dragon, I want to borrow your pearl today." Boom. Right after he spoke, a thunderstorm exploded, and the originally clear sky suddenly became packed with dense clouds. TSK, Master is always so domineering when he's outside.
They have a whole bunch of pretty cool mount designs.
As he watched from the side. He probably still had to cultivate for a year or so to reach that stage. Of course, if Xiao Wuyo were to find out what he was thinking, he would become so infuriated that he would nearly blood. I've met you before. Xiao Wuyo, do you really think I'm afraid of you? The Black Dragon sneered as the entire water level of the river rose steeply by at least 100 meters, followed by a curtain of water that covered the sky.
Undead horse.
Kid, come to me. A battle between two experts at the peak of the Golden Core realm is not a joke. Yu Ruashue saw Chen Shun watching with great interest, and with a wave of her hand, she pulled Chen Shun towards him. Chen Shun quickly stabilized his body and said respectfully, "Thank you, Master's wife, but won't you help Master?" Yu Ruashue's body shook violently when she heard Chen Shin's words. She then muttered, "What did you call me?" "Master's wife." Chen Shun exclaimed with an innocent look. Yu Ruashue froze for several seconds before she suddenly burst out into laughter once again. "Kid, you're much wittier than your master. Your master doesn't need my help. I cultivate water techniques, which is restrained by thunder techniques. If I forcefully intervene, it will only affect your master's performance." Seeing Yu Ruashue smiling radiantly, Chen Shun sighed with relief. Fortunately, he did not go wrong with bootlicking. Ahem, I have some heavenly treasures here that can beautify one's face.
Yeah, it looks
Please
like a bear
kindly
mount.
accept it. Of course, you look just like a young girl, so these heavenly treasures can only be the icing on the cake at best. While speaking, Chen Shun pulled out several heavenly treasures from his storage ring, which caused Yu Ruashue's jaw to drop. Xiao Wuyo is such a daft person. How did he take in such a smart and witty boy? After hesitating for a while, Yu Ruashue nevertheless accepted the heavenly treasures.
Got a
She
dragon
couldn't help
mount.
herself. It was women's nature to
Boar
be vain.
mount.
However, she couldn't take Chen Shin's
This
gifts for
cool
nothing
looking
in return.
ice looking mount.
After putting away the heavenly treasures into her storage ring,
cat
she
mount.
took out a black mask.
Another cat mount.
This mask is a special product of the Yushue
Phoenix
clan.
mount.
It can change your appearance as you wish, and it might be useful for you.
Some weird
Thank
creature
you,
mount.
Master's wife. Chen Shin was in a good mood
Dragon.
after receiving the mask. He could use the system to find some heavenly treasures,
cat
but he
mount,
could
but
not find such items.
I don't see the
Hence,
saddles.
the exchange was a sure profit for him. During their conversation, Xiao Wuyo
a
and the
weird
Black Dragon had already begun to fight.
I don't know what that is.
There was a huge downpour, and the gloomy clouds were rolling amidst the
But
thunder.
there's
From
as
time
you can
to
see
time,
from here, there's,
small cultivators would
each one
approach to take
has
a look at the situation.
6,
But
and
after
there's
seeing the scene of the
40
battle,
pages
they all turned around and
of
left in fear.
sixes. So
Just like that, the battle
that is
lasted for
a
an hour.
lot of
All of a
mounts.
sudden, the sound of the Black Dragon's roar suddenly filled the air. Xiao Wuyo, if you didn't cultivate the lightning method,
But a
you
lot
would
of it
never be
seems
my
to be
opponent.
like duplicate of
After the deep voice sounded, the Black Dragon plunged
of
directly
the
into
same
the river
type.
and vanished.
Just a different
Xiao
color,
Wuyo, who was in the
different
sky,
like
immediately followed without
one that
hesitation.
has like
Seeing this scene,
more
Yuruashue
stuff on
exclaimed
its
in shock,
body and stuff.
"Wuyo, there's already enough commotion.
Let
Besides,
me go.
the dragon is already injured. Why do you still have to
Can't go all
chase
the
it?
way.
The Black Dragon's territory is under the water. I will kill it today." Xiao Wuyo's
They
voice
got
was
a
full of
giant
killing
robot
intent,
mount
but Chen, who was
that
by
you
the river,
sit like right
couldn't
by
help
where
but
the head's
clench his
supposed to
fist.
be.
Master came here today with the purpose of
Which is
breaking
pretty
through
cool.
to the nascent soul realm. The battle with the Black Dragon
Got a
is just an
phantom mount.
additional battle. In fact, there's no need to kill the Black Dragon. It was enough to create an intense battle atmosphere. Once he broke through to the nascent soul realm, the movement would naturally be regarded as the aftermath of the battle by the
worm mount.
cultivators nearby.
A dude
However,
mounts is what I
now
what
that his
I
master
what I
was determined to go
um,
down the river, his reasoning was self-evident. He just wanted to seize the dragon
that's a
pearl
lot.
for
Yeah,
himself.
it
Thinking
is
about
a
this,
lot.
Chen Chen's emotions became
The
extremely
game's been out
complicated.
for like
Truth be told, he
20
respected Xiao
years.
Wuyo greatly, but he didn't have a strong relationship with him.
I want to say
Yet,
20 years. The
Xiao
game's
Wuyo
been
now
out for like
chose to
20
take
years,
the
so it
risk
is a
during his
lot of
breakthrough
them.
to the nascent soul realm, all because of his foundation building. That made him feel very guilty. The moment Xiao Wuyo entered the river, the entire river directly surged upwards towards the sky amidst countless dragon roars. Endless waves of water
So this
spread in
map
all
right here,
directions. However, the waves did not affect
this
the
map
towns
right
in the
here,
distance due to
back
Yuruashue's
in
presence. Unlike her
Vanilla
previous
WoW,
calm and collected
this was
self,
a
Yuruashue's eyes were full of
Warlock
anxiety.
exclusive
At
mount,
several
meaning
points
how
throughout the
only
fight,
the
she felt
Warlock
an impulse to
class
jump
can
into
get
the
this
river.
mount.
However, after seeing
This
the
was
lightning in
only
the
for
river,
Warlocks.
she stopped in her tracks. Boom. Accompanied by an explosion, Xiao Wuyo was
Ugh, I want to
blasted out
get
of the
this
water.
so bad.
Amidst the water mist, Qinshin
How the
vaguely
hell am I
saw that
supposed to get
Xiao
this?
Wuyo's body had been dyed red. Before he could clearly see, Xiao
I
Wuyo did
want to
not
know how I
surge
can
into the
get
river
that.
again. Seeing this, Qinshin could not help himself but yell at the river, "Master, there's no need for that. I can also go through foundation building with my own abilities." However, the lightning still flashed in the middle of the river while the waves soared to the sky.
Oop,
Xiao Wuyo did
don't
not
step
show
in
the
that.
slightest tendency to give up. "Oh, I really owe him a huge favor," Qinshin muttered to himself with a complicated expression. The battle lasted for another hour, and finally, by around noontime, the river had calmed down once again. At this point in time, the entire surface of the river had been completely dyed red, with some vaguely apparent dragon scales floating on the river's surface. A few moments later, a slightly disheveled figure emerged from the river and made its way to the riverbank. "Master, you," Qinshin said in a shaky voice. Yuruashue even rushed to Xiao Wuyo's side. At this moment, Xiao Wuyo's clothes were tattered and stained bright red. Apart from that, Xiao Wuyo's right arm was missing. Clearly, he had lost an arm during the battle. "Wuyo, how did this happen to you?" Yuruashue exclaimed as he looked at Xiao Wuyo, her tone full of heartache. "If I didn't slaughter this demon dragon, how would I be able to break through to the nascent soul realm?"
I can't see.
Xiao
I
Wuyo did
can't
not
see.
mean what he said. He
Oh my
quickly
God,
sped
I
up
can't
and scurried
see.
toward Qinshin while an unspeakable smile appeared on his pale face. He then used his only arm to place a fist-sized black pearl in Shinshin's hand. "Disciple, this is for you. With this dragon pearl, you should be able to break through to the Foundation Establishment realm." "Master, your arm. Don't worry. With the Heavenly Spirit Bell Stalagmite, it will recover soon," Xiao Wuyo said as he took out the Heavenly Spirit Bell Stalagmite from his storage ring and gently took a mouthful of it. After looking at Xiao Wuyo, who was shivering, Qinshin glanced at the dragon pearl in his hand. At this moment, Qinshin genuinely regarded him as his master. After drinking the Heavenly Spirit Bell Stalagmite, a burst of majestic vitality erupted from Xiao Wuyo's
Okay,
right arm,
dirty
and a new arm
keys.
soon grew out. Qinshin was relieved to see this. The Heavenly Spirit Bell
True.
Stalagmite had indeed lived up to its name, being a heavenly treasure. Not only could it heal Luciener's damaged heart, it even allowed his master to regrow his missing arm. If I had known earlier, I would have given Master a little more.
Right.
Now, however, he was too embarrassed to give him more. After all, he had said before that he only had a limited amount. He could only make up for it later in other aspects. Heavenly Spirit Bell Stalagmite. "Wuyo, where did you get such a good thing from?" Yuruashue leaned over, most of the worry in her tone dissipating. "I obtained it by chance," Xiao Wuyo answered with a smile, not mentioning Qinshin. "Humph, since you're okay now, seize the time and break through." Yuruashue could tell with a glance that Xiao Wuyo was being perfunctory, but she didn't take it too seriously and simply humped coldly. Xiao Wuyo nodded slightly, looked at Qinshin, then instructed, "Disciple, when I transcend the thunder tribulation later on, it will be the time when the thunder spirit chi in heaven and earth is the densest. You will build your foundation at that time, understand?" "Understood," Qinshin answered solemnly, gripping the dragon pearl tightly. Hearing Qinshin's answer, Xiao Wuyo turned to look at the distant sky. His eyes became solemn, and he murmured incessantly, "I, the 28th generation disciple of Tianyun clan, Xiao Wuyo, am talentless, but I'm breaking through the nascent soul realm today. Ancestors, please bless me." After saying that, an unparalleled wave of ethereality erupted from Xiao Wuyo's body, and an invisible force propelled Qinshin and Yuruashue into the distance. Immediately afterwards, a golden elixir covered in lightning slowly flew out from Xiao Wuyo's body before being suspended in midair. As soon as the golden elixir appeared, the sky immediately became gloomy, the rolling clouds converging towards the top of Xiao Wuyo's head. Even Qinshin, who was far away, could sense that an inexplicable force was causing the sky to quake, as if it would descend into the world at any moment. Boom! With a loud thunderclap, a sanguine lightning bolt suddenly appeared in the sky and struck Xiao Wuyo's golden core. His body quivered violently, and his face turned slightly pale, but the look of certainty in his eyes remained. The lightning bolt seemed to have opened Pandora's box, and the following lightning bolts came one after another, each one denser than the one preceding it. They all surged into the golden elixir that came with lightning. Soon, the golden elixir was covered in cracks. At this juncture, the thunder ethereality between heaven and earth had also reached its highest point. Without needing to be reminded, Chun Chun swallowed the dragon pearl, which was nearly as big as a fist, in one go. As a ruthless person who dared to jump off of a cliff without a status of cultivation, swallowing a dragon pearl was nothing to him. Chun Chun inhaled sharply. As soon as the dragon pearl entered his belly, Chun Chun couldn't help but inhale, clearly feeling the dragon pearl vaporizing directly after entering his body. A massive, indescribable wave of ethereality rampaged through his body. That feeling, it was like drinking 10
I'll
liters of soda.
definitely hit you up when I'm
All
getting
sorts
onto
of gases would rampage
Final
in one's
Fantasy.
gut,
Thank you
but
very
outsiders
much.
would never
I
understand
really
how it
appreciate
felt.
it.
He could withstand the impact because he had a special constitution. If ordinary chi cultivators, or even cultivators at the Foundation establishment realm, attempted to do this, they would probably die after swallowing the dragon pearl. A few moments later, Chun Chun looked up at the sky and let out the sound of a dragon roar.
Alright, later.
The violent ethereality rampaging inside his body finally drew out the two vortexes of the Tianyun Divine Thunder technique. They also began fusing. Chun Chun understood that he was going to start foundation building. What is going on with this kid? Yu Ruoxue asked, her jaw dropping at the sight. She had been paying attention to Xiao Wuyo, but she was now shocked by the commotion Chin Chin had made. To be honest, she hadn't noticed what Chin Chin's status of cultivation was early. However, she realized that Xiao Wuyo seemed to have mentioned the word foundation building. Is this kid going through foundation building? Yu Ruoxue wondered in disbelief. Who would cause such a huge stir during foundation building? She didn't cause so much of a commotion when she reached core formation back then. However, before she could understand the situation, a bright stream of light suddenly emanated from Chin Chin's body, and he was instantly illuminated. While the ethereality between heaven and earth began to surge towards him like the water of 100 rivers surging to the sea. Even Xiao Wuyo's tribulation clouds began to move towards Chin Chin from afar, as if they were attracted to him. Huff. After a long time, Chin Chin exhaled and the light in his body finally dissipated, while the two vortexes in his body also fused into one, emitting an ethereality that was several times stronger than before. Once peace was restored, Chin Chin looked up at the sky, after which his body floated upward. After stepping into the Foundation establishment realm, he had gained the ability to fly. During Chi training, the total amount of ethereality was large, but the degree of coalescence was not as good as when one was at the Foundation establishment realm. Hence, before reaching the realm, one was unable to fly. Now that he had gained the ability to fly, he would be able to use the system over 10 times more efficiently than before. Host, you have forged the foundation of the Great Tao, and the tracking range has been increased to 30 meters. Host, you are also rewarded with a chance of lucky tracking. Hearing the system alert in his mind, Chin Chin was first happy, then confused. What on earth is lucky tracking? It hadn't appeared before. Lucky tracking begins. After the alert, Chin Chin felt a pop-up screen quickly scroll through his mind. It was so fast, he could only vaguely see some fragments. Track down a person of the opposite that best matches the host's aesthetic standards. Track a set of techniques that the host subconsciously likes the most. Track a divine soldier that is the most compatible with the host. Track an underling who will be pleased and concede to the host once he sees you. Staring at the pop-ups, Chin Chin was dumbfounded. What are all these? Before he could get a clear idea, the pop-up stopped appearing in his head. Tracking the host's favorite food. Tracking begins. There is a 100,000-year-old muscle spirit in the boundless ocean within 2,620,000 kilometers north of the host. Host, after eating its core muscle meat, you will find it to be the most delicious food in the world. End of lucky tracking. That's it. Chin Chin was speechless, as he hadn't expected that the food that he subconsciously felt was his favorite would be tracked. But this is of no use. Millions of kilometers away. A 100,000-year-old muscle spirit. When will I be able to eat it? I can't travel millions of kilometers just to eat it, can I? And even if I do, I might be the one getting eaten, not the other way round. I'm incompetent. Chin Chin sighed in his heart. It was the saddest thing in the world. I obviously know what my favorite food is, but I might never get to eat it in this life. Fortunately, the system did not track a woman for him. That would make him feel terrible, to know of her existence, but never be able to see her. Mussels may not move much in the sea, but humans would run around. Just because it had been tracked didn't mean that he would be able to find it. While Qin Shan was feeling conflicted, Xiao Wuyo's golden core finally cracked open, and a tiny person who looked exactly like Xiao Wuyo wriggled out. This little man in the void had a solemn expression on his face, but due to the fact that his body was so small, he looked funny rather than imposing. When Xiao Wuyo saw the little man, a smile of relief graced his face, and he saluted the little man. The little man returned the salute, then quickly wriggled into Xiao Wuyo's body. From then on, Xiao Wuyo had officially stepped into the nascent soul realm. Qin Shan's face was incredibly sullen. As a person suffering from OCD, he continuously thought of only one question. What exactly does the muscle spirit taste like? Upon returning to the Tianyun clan, Qin Shan took stock of his gains during the trip. There were more than 100 pieces of dragon scales and half a dragon heart on the table. In addition to that, there were 100 pounds of dragon meat in his storage ring, with even more in the kitchen. After the demon dragon was beheaded, the demon dragon's body sank into the river, and Qin Shan took all of those things away with him. However, he didn't have the cheek to take too much, only taking a little. The rest was split between Xiao Wuyo and Yu Ruoshui. If nothing went wrong, the standard of the food in the Tianyun clan would be raised a notch for a bit in the future. Of course, in addition to those items, there were also 7 or 8 storage bags in Qin Shan's storage ring and another storage ring, all of which he found in the dragon's cave in the bottom of the river using the system. However, he was not in a hurry to open the treasure chest, as he felt that Zhang Ji was a better candidate for opening it. Master, what are these mussels for? There doesn't seem to be anything peculiar about them. A puzzled Hussiener, who was in the kitchen, asked. Generally speaking, the ingredients she used were all heavenly treasures that Qin Shan had obtained. It was the first time that something as lowly as mussels had appeared in the kitchen. Hearing this, the corners of Qin Shan's eyes twitched. God knows why he wanted to pick those mussels. He had just subconsciously picked them up. Nothing, just cook it with the dragon meat. Okay, Master, Hussiener acknowledged obediently. Now that Qin Shan had the power of the dragon, she was more and more scrupulous towards him. Besides, by following Qin Shan, she actually got to eat demon dragon meat. She was pleased with such treatment. In the past, she wasn't willing to cook and study under Qin Shan's orders, but now she was willing to do so. Just as Qin Shan was packing everything up, a familiar voice came from outside the courtyard. Successor, I have something important to report. Please come in. Without waiting for Qin Shan's response, the little morning glory took the initiative to speak up and welcome the guest. Hearing the voice, a slightly lewd figure trotted in, stopping in front of Qin Shan. Wang Feng, what can I do for you? Qin Shan was a little curious when he saw who it was. After he was taught a lesson last time, he was as well behaved as he could be with the Tianyun clan. He even helped the newly initiated Outer Clan disciples from time to time, making the jaws of some of the elders of the Tianyun clan, who knew him, drop. Successor, the Wuxing clan sent me a message yesterday to inform me to keep a close eye on you during this month to prevent any swapping. Wang Feng answered nervously. Upon hearing his words, Qin Shan seemed to be deep in thought. A month later, the new king of the state of Jin would be enthroned, and logically speaking, he would be making a trip to the capital of the state of Jin. Besides, the Wuxing clan had instructed Wang Feng to keep an eye on him. The meaning was very obvious. In a month's time, the Wuxing clan would probably create some trouble. The most likely possibility would be that they would hold him hostage. That was still a relatively gentle scenario. A harsher one. Qin Shan did not continue to think about it. I know. You may leave. You have done a good job this time. As long as you continue to persevere, there'll definitely be a way out for you in the future. Thank you, successor. Wang Feng bowed to Qin Shan before leaving the courtyard of the main peak. After he left, Qin Shan frowned slightly. In the past, he was not concerned about the affairs of the Tianyun clan, but now he was thinking of sharing the Tianyun clan's burden every day. To be honest, it was still too relaxed in the Tianyun clan, mainly because the management model was too backward. In the novels of his previous life, they would often conduct inner and outer clan assessments to boost the cultivation enthusiasm of the inner and outer clan disciples. But what about the Tianyun clan? Disciples whose status of cultivation had reached a certain standard would be promoted to inner clan disciples who were ranked according to status of cultivation. Additionally, the substantial benefits were not great either. What was the point of the ranking? It's so backward. It's time to put my management experience from the modern world to good use. Qinshan sighed, took out a pen and a piece of paper, and began to write with vigor. In his previous life, he had lived to his 20s and been a manager of a foreign enterprise. He was doing rather well, very experienced in transferring staff and brainwashing them. Hence, it didn't take long for him to list dozens of reform programs. Since he was pressed for time, it was better to implement some of the programs sooner rather than later. Qinshan sorted through those programs before going to the clan master hall. In the future, if there was anything that he wanted to add or something that wasn't suitable for the Tianyun clan, he would just make a few trips. When he arrived at the clan master hall, he realized that Xiao Wuyo was cultivating. With his talent, he could have broken through to the nascent soul realm long ago. But because of the Wuxing clan, he froze and suppressed himself for decades. With how much he had accumulated, he immediately broke through to the peak of the nascent soul realm. With the remaining heavenly spirit bell stalagmite, he felt that he would be able to step into the mid-nascent soul realm in a short period of time. Hence, he cultivated non-stop after his return. Noticing that Qinshan had arrived, Xiao Wuyo slowly opened his eyes. He was very satisfied with this disciple of his. Although Qinshan was only at the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, the degree of condensation of ethereality in his body was no less than the peak of that realm. This ability, in the Tianyun clan, other than him and a few of the Supreme Elders, there were very few people who could reach that realm. Disciple, is there any confusion? Xiao Wuyo asked, seeing Qinshan's gloomy face. Master, here's the thing. In order to deal with the Wuxing clan, we must improve the overall strength of the Tianyun clan. Also, to make the Tianyun clan stronger, we need to enhance the aggressiveness of the disciples, as well as the elders. After some observation, I discovered that there are many internal management loopholes in the Tianyun clan at the moment, and everyone here isn't ambitious enough, so I'm here to suggest some areas for improvement. Qinshan's tone was serious and earnest as he spoke, causing Xiao Wuyo to laugh after hearing his words. My disciple was born in a village, so by right, he shouldn't have much knowledge. Yet, here he is, thinking about how to manage the sect. Disciple, do you know about management? Ahem, I know a little. I helped the village chief manage the village in the past, Qinshan said with some embarrassment. There was a peculiar expression on Xiao Wuyo's face after he heard those words. How is managing a village the same as managing a clan? However, it's good that he has such thoughts. After all, he has to take over my position as clan master of Tianyun clan in the future. There's no harm in starting to learn right now. Back then, he had also learned from his master for a period of time. In fact, he still had a copy of Clan Master Essentials, which his master had given him. Forget it, I shall give this kid some guidance. In the future, I'll also impart the Clan Master Essentials to him. After thinking about it, Xiao Wuyo said with a faint smile, feel free to voice any suggestion that you have. Upon hearing this, Qinshan took out a piece of paper, entirely covered with words. I've roughly listed 32 of them. Master, please take a look. Xiao Wuyo's hands trembled after hearing his words. Shocked? I know this kid is serious, but 32? Are you kidding me? The rules of the clan are the result of the hard work of successive clan masters over many years. How can there be so many loopholes? Besides, other clans are very similar to us. However, he was afraid of being Qinshan's wet blanket, so he didn't show a look of dismay. Instead, he took out the Clan Master Essentials from his storage ring and handed it to Qinshan before taking Qinshan's proposal. Disciple, take a good look at this book. It will be of great use to you in the future. Now, I shall see what you have proposed. Qinshan grabbed the Clan Master's Essentials, roughly understanding what it said after giving it a casual glance. Its content level was similar to the imperial mind techniques of the patriarchal dynasties in the previous world. However, it was not as detailed as the emperor's mind techniques. It was mostly just vague logic that seemed unclear. It couldn't be helped, since people who cultivated immortality enjoyed such fancy things. At the same time, Xiao Wuyo was looking at Qinshan's suggestions. Qinshan seemed to have been worried that he couldn't understand the meaning behind some of these suggestions, giving detailed, 100-word-long introductions and explanations for each of them. Looking at his clear line of thought, Xiao Wuyo's expression changed again and again. At this time, there was only one sentence that was running through his mind. So we can do that? As the clan master, he was definitely a smart person, able to tell with some deduction whether or not Qinshan's suggestions would work. However, Wasn't his disciple born in a village? How could he think of so many extreme and unscrupulous means? Could it be that there really was such a thing as a natural talent in this world? Thinking of this, Xiaoyo subconsciously raised his head to look at Qinshin, only to see that the latter was reading the Clan Master Essentials. He couldn't help but blush. The difference was too big. At this moment, his Clan Master Essentials seemed to be for amateurs. Without hesitation, Xiaoyo released powerful ethereality with a solemn expression, immediately after which the Clan Master Essentials and Qinshin's returned to his storage ring. Ahem, I passed you the wrong one. The Tianyun clan's copy of the Clan Master's Essentials seems to have gone missing. As for these suggestions of yours, well, they are very good. However, many of them are not apt for the current situation of the Tianyun clan, such as a few of the incentive measures. To be honest, the Tianyun clan can't afford to give away that many spirit stones right now. As soon as Xiaoyo said those words, Qinshin interjected, Master, there's something I forgot to tell you. The Outer Clan disciple Zhang Ji found the ore of a spiritual rhinoceros in a desolate mountain in the Tianyun Mountains some time ago. The reserves are satisfactory and can meet the needs of the Tianyun clan at the moment. Xiaoyo was stunned by those words. The spiritual rhinoceros ore was a necessary item for refining spiritual weapons and magic treasures. It was also worth a lot of money, so if they really found the ore, it would bring them a massive amount of wealth. Is Tianyun clan really blessed by heaven? He wondered. In that case, the matter will be left to you. Just remember to discuss everything with the elders, as there are some things they would know better than I do. Let me know the reserves in that spiritual rhinoceros after you explore, Xiaoyo said very decisively after a long period of silence. The Tianyun clan was on the verge of collapsing, so he didn't mind letting Qinshin go through that hassle. Haha, Master, you're very wise. Qinshin laughed out loud and turned around to leave the clan master hall. Staring at his disciple's back, Xiaoyo's gaze became somewhat complicated. His disciple was heaven's favorite, but his wits still had to be nurtured. For example, Qinshin suggested setting up 1 or 2 more apprenticeship points in Jizhou and strict inspections for things like robbery and murder along the way to ensure the safety of mortals who come to test their qualifications. Putting it simply, he believed in human manpower more than immortal powers. Humans surpass the will of heavens. That is the claim of the demon clan. Xiaoyo sighed lightly before continuing to cultivate. 3 days later, on Tianyun Mountains, there was a group of Outer Clan disciples digging for mines on the spiritual Rhinoceros Peak. The spiritual Rhinoceros Peak was originally just a desolate mountain, but it earned its name after the discovery of the spiritual rhinoceros, or here the day before yesterday. Ah, we used to be able to earn spirit stones just by fetching water, but now we have to mine. Exactly. Fetching water might not be easier than mining, but mining is too dirty. A few of the Outer Clan disciples were complaining while mining. In the past 2 days, there had been a lot of rules implemented in Tianyun Clan, among which the old system of fetching water to obtain spirit stones for the Outer Clan disciples who did not have a status of cultivation was changed to a new one involving mining. Some male disciples were fine with it, but how could the female disciples stand it? After coming out of the mine, they would be covered in soot and look like apes. However, it happened that they would be able to earn plenty of spirit stones after mining. Although their minds said no, their bodies really wanted it. I heard that a big figure in the clan wants to reform the Tianyun clan, even implementing an elimination system. Rumor has it that those who fail to achieve a status of cultivation after 2 months will be expelled from the sect. Cultivation is not easy either. I heard that we have to be ranked according to our status of cultivation. Those at the bottom of the ranks will get special subsidies from the clan, but if you still don't have a status of cultivation after 2 months of being subsidized, you have to go to the mortal world. Yes, I also know about the ranking system. The elders and the clan master are included too. Do you guys know that Elder Zhou of the Outer Clan has been sulking all day after learning that he had been ranked behind a few Inner Clan disciples? He's been making things hard for us every day. A few of the Outer Clan disciples were getting angrier and angrier, wishing they could find the person who had started the reform and give him a harsh scolding. I heard that it was the Grand Elder's idea. Is that so? Yes, it's spreading all around the sect. Apart from him, no one else has that capability. The Grand Elder. A group of Outer Clan disciples cursed, turning their grief and anger into power, mining the ores one after another. At this moment, a female disciple was looking at the top of a mountain in the distance, her eyes full of admiration. Look, you guys, The successor is coming to send us drinks again. The group of Outer Clan disciples all looked at the mountaintop upon hearing this, only to see a young man dressed in fluttering, white clothing looking at them with compassion. The successor is just too nice. He's understanding towards us Outer Clan disciples and sends us food and drinks every day. A female disciple with a sullen face was moved to tears. When she wiped them away, her tears mixed with the dust without her knowledge. These days, the successor has been offering us the best things. Compared to the Grand Elder, the successor is so much better. If only the successor could become the clan master soon. Shh, keep your voice down. If the Grand Elder hears you, you will be skinned alive. He mentioned in his reform that strength is the most important thing in the Tianyun clan, and only the one who comes in first place can become the clan master. This is horrendous. This is deliberate suppression of the successor. At the same time, in the Tiandu Peak Elder's courtyard, the Grand Elder was sulking, fury apparent in his eyes. There were several other elders beside him who looked very innocent. At that moment, the Grand Elder stood up abruptly and smashed his most beloved teacup. Who spread that rumor? Who said that I initiated the reform? A few elders looked at each other, wanting to say something, but did not end up doing so. However, one of them finally mustered up some courage and said, I guess it was the successor. At that time, he asked us to issue orders, but I did not think much of it. Now, the more I think about it, the more I find that something is wrong. Shinshin, that brat. He's being so unruly just because he has the support of the clan master. He framed me. This is outrageous. The Grand Elder cursed angrily. When he went out in the past few days, he had to face the peculiar gazes of all the disciples. Sometimes, they would even curse him while discussing things amongst themselves. How could his pride allow him to bear that? No, I have to find a way to get rid of the blame and clear my name. That brat Shinshin is horrible. While cursing, the Grand Elder tried to think of a solution. At this moment, another elder entered the room with an anxious expression. Senior brother, Tiangang cannot accept being ranked behind Qinshun and went to challenge Qinshun at the spiritual rhinoceros peak. What should we do? The elder's eyes flickered upon hearing his words. In the past 2 days, the clan members had come up with a power ranking. Qinshun was extremely thick-skinned too, arranging for him to be in 10th place. Apart from the clan master, there were 5 supreme elders in the clan, thus taking up 6 places. As the Grand Elder, he was ranked 7th, while the Punishment Elder was ranked 8th, followed by the Alchemy Elder, who was ranked 9th. Next was the 10th place. This could only join the clan a short period of time ago, and he has given me such a low ranking. Isn't he thick-skinned? He's so thick-skinned. Thinking about this, he sneered, ordering him, let Tiangang go. That Qinshin set his own rules. The disciples are allowed to challenge each other. If Tiangang challenges him, it won't be considered an offense, and the clan master cannot say anything about it. The elder who had just entered was incredibly anxious. Sun Tiangang was the eldest disciple of the clan, and he had entered the middle stage of foundation building a long time ago. However, Qinshun had been initiated only a few days ago. Grand Elder, Qinshun is the future clan master. We have to show him some respect. When the Grand Elder heard the word respect, he lost his temper and cursed, Respect, my foot. That Qinshun needs to be taught a lesson. Leave him alone. Let Tiangang challenge him. Let him shoot himself in the foot. After hearing his words, the elders fell silent, knowing that the Grand Elder was really furious. It might be a good idea to let the successor suffer a little setback. He hadn't become the clan master yet, but he had the audacity to frame the Grand Elder. Wouldn't things get worse once he became the clan master? Wouldn't he torture them every day? On the spiritual rhinoceros peak, Qinshin was distributing spiritual water to a group of Outer Clan disciples. In addition to that, every time an Outer Clan disciple arrived, he would also pour him a bowl of chicken soup. Senior brother, here's a piece of advice for you. You have to suffer and take hardship in order to become an elite. Successor, I'm enlightened. Junior sister, don't cry anymore. If you don't brave through the storm, you won't see the rainbow. Mining might be tough, but it trains you to be patient. Go ahead. Thank you, successor. Junior brother, if you become an immortal emperor one day, you will look back on today's experience and realize that this is a rare treasure. Become an immortal emperor. Junior sister, heaven will bestow a great task on you, but you must first be willing to suffer, have a strong sense of ambition, and work hard. The harder you work now, the more heaven will value you. The cultivators of the immortal world were simpletons who had never heard such fancy words before. Hence, they all cheered and clapped for him. Soon after drinking a bowl of spiritual spring water, they began mining energetically. Looking at the busy figures, Qinshan sighed. They are the future of the Tianyun clan. As soon as he said those words, he heard a shout that disrupted his thoughts. Qinshan, I want to challenge you. Qinshan frowned and turned around, only to see the buff and burly Sun Tiangang walking towards him with a few inner clan disciples, all feisty and full of confidence. A group of outer clan disciples who had been mining also paused, looking over curiously. It's senior brother son of the inner clan. He wants to challenge the successor. The Grand Elder must be wanting to suppress the successor, so he sent his grandson over to pick a fight. No wonder he deliberately ranked the successor so far at the top. So that's the reason. Those who are ranked at the top cannot challenge those who are ranked in the bottom. The Grand Elder just wants the successor to be his grandson's stepping stone. A group of outer clan disciples muttered amongst themselves while letting their imaginations run wild. Very soon, they imagined Sun Tiangang as a villainous figure. After all, the successor is so inspirational, motivated, ambitious, eloquent, soft-spoken, and kind. He can't be a villain, right? Senior brother son, you want to challenge me? Looking at Sun Tiangang, who was walking up to him, Qinshan's face was calm. Yes, there is now a new rule in the clan where disciples have the opportunity to challenge others once every 7 days. The person who gets challenged cannot refute unless he has a special and valid reason. Sun Tiangang was rather confident and self-righteous. In the past, he did not dare to beat Qinshan because the latter's status was higher than his. Hence, if he assaulted Qinshan, he would be severely punished for offending his superior. However, the previous rule had been abolished, and the new principle of the Tianyun clan was that the strongest would be rendered supreme. Qinshan nodded slightly after hearing this. He answered, according to the rules, you have to draft a letter of challenge. If there is no letter of challenge, I refuse to take it on. Letter of challenge? Sun Tiangang was dumbfounded. He only saw the term that stated that a challenge was permissible, failing to notice the various other restrictions. Besides, most of these restrictions were to make the disciples choose their challenges carefully, so as to save everyone's time and effort. This included drafting a letter of challenge. Senior brother, I have a pen and piece of paper here. An inter-clan disciple hurriedly took out the supplies from his storage bag, handing them to Sun Tiangang. Seeing this, Sun Tiangang's eyes lit up, and he immediately started writing the letter of challenge. Soon, the letter of challenge was handed to Qinshan. Qinshan, can we start the fight now? Sun Tiangang asked, getting into the mood. However, Qinshan shook his head. What's there to fight about? According to the rules, fights have to take place in the designated ring set up in the clan, and a person whose strength is above the 2 participants must bear witness. After hearing his words, Sun Tiangang became so infuriated that he almost vomited blood. It's just a fight. Why are there so many things to consider? However, he still had to comply. After thinking about that, Sun Tiangang stomped his feet resentfully and turned around to leave. Half an hour later, Qinshan helped Zhao Shaya to the bed. Many people had gathered below the ring at the foot of the Heavenly Sword Peak, among which were some inner clan disciples, outer clan disciples, and a few elders. That was because it was the first official battle after the implementation of the new rule. Besides, the contestants were 2 of the most popular figures of the Tianyun clan. One was Sun Tiangang, the inner clan disciple with a mid-stage foundation establishment status of cultivation, ranked in the 36th place. The other was the successor, who had been initiated less than 2 months ago, was ranked 10th, and had an unknown status of cultivation. Grand Elder has arrived. Just as the crowd was waiting expectantly, they heard a voice ring out from the distance. Upon hearing this, the crowd hurriedly made away. After all, the Grand Elder was now feared by everyone in the clan. The Grand Elder walked to the ring with a sullen expression. He had no choice but to do so since his grandson had begged him to come and bear witness. To be honest, he did not plan to come out this time because he could not stand the contemptuous gazes others were looking at him with. However, Qinshan was ranked 10th, and there were only a few people in the entire clan who were qualified to be a judge and bear witness. Participants, please come on a stage. When they arrived at the edge of the ring, the Grand Elder announced loudly according to the process. As soon as he said those words, Sun Tiangang jumped onto the ring impatiently. Oh my god, I can finally challenge Qinshan. He had been flying around nonstop for the past half hour. Apart from begging his grandfather to bear witness, He also went to report to the elders in charge of the ranking. On the other hand, Chen did not do anything. However, heaven would never let down those who had strong willpower. By beating Chen up, he would be able to vent his anger. Both of you, bow and show your friendship. The Grand Elder ordered with twitching cheeks. It was exactly like the process Chen had set up. Senior brother, son, please teach me more. Chen said politely with a bow. Brother Chen, please guide me along. Sun Tiangang bit the bullet and forced himself to bow. At this moment, he was just scared that he might break a rule and allow Chen to find an excuse not to accept his challenge. When the inner and outer clan disciples below saw that scene, most of the nervousness in their hearts instantly vanished because Chen and Sun Tiangang had demonstrated the challenge process for them today. Sun Tiangang, if you dare hit too hard, you'll get it from me. Just as the Grand Elder was about to announce the start, a woman's warning voice suddenly rang out in the crowd. Sun Tiangang was furious at hearing her words. Why was it that difficult for him to fight? However, at the next moment, his eyes suddenly lit up, and he hollered back furiously, Zhao Xiaya, according to the rules, you are disturbing the order in the ring, so you have to pay a fine of 100 spirit stones. After saying that, Sun Tiangang behaved extremely complacently. Along the way, he had studied the rules thoroughly even though he was not a studious person. At this moment, he was finally gaining the upper hand in an encounter with Zhao Xiaya. Zhao Xiaya, go pay the fine. Also, the battle in the ring officially begins. The Grand Elder humped coldly and announced with a wave of his hand. Sun Tiangang was so excited to hear this instruction that he abruptly looked up at the sky and roared, after which the ethereality in his body gushed out like a gale. He was cultivating the Tianyun Gale technique, which was the Tianyun clan's second best technique. During a battle, the attacks would be like a violent snowstorm. On top of that, extremely powerful wind dharma spells would be cast too. With the combination of the two, a normal cultivator at the middle of the Foundation establishment realm would be no match for him. The disciples below were all shocked at seeing the scene before them. Is this the strength of the inner sect's eldest senior brother? To be honest, the group of disciples in the Tianyun clan rarely had any opportunities to see a fight between experts when they were training, especially some of the outer clan disciples. Hence, they had no idea what cultivation above the Foundation establishment realm was truly like. Now that they had seen how powerful Sun Tiangang was, the eyes of many disciples were full of desire, wishing that they could become that strong someday. Looking at the envy in the eyes of the disciples, the Grand Elder had some extremely complicated emotions. Although he hated Chen, he could not deny that Chen's reform of the Tianyun clan was leading them in the right direction. Letting those disciples know what an expert looked like would undoubtedly inspire them to become stronger. While he was thinking about that, Sun Tiangang had already charged towards Chen like a storm, powerful ethereality surging out in all directions. Some of the outer clan disciples with weak statuses of cultivation were almost flipped over, falling onto the ground. They had no choice but to cover their eyes with their hands in order to catch a glimpse of the ring. With their vision blurred, they could only see a figure standing like a lone pine in the middle of the storm, his clothes rattling loudly as he stayed still. The most senior disciple of the inner clan, Sun Tiangang, was about to hit the figure with a fist that was covered in wind. At that moment, the figure suddenly stretched out his palm, a terrifying wave of ethereality that was several times more violent than the ferocious gale surging outwards. Boom! With a loud roar, the gale came to a sudden halt, the smoke and dust dispersing. In the ring, there was a singular figure still standing. The crowd of inner and outer clan disciples were astonished, almost dropping their jaws. It wasn't that they didn't think that Sun Tiangang would lose, but how could it happen like that? He was gone in just one move? Where's the shocking battle we were promised? We came all the way here to watch the battle, but he vanished in the blink of an eye. At that moment, there was a muffled sound in the distance as Sun Tiangang landed on the ground more than 10 meters away. The Grand Elder immediately looked over, relieved to see that his grandson was only slightly injured. Chen has shown him some mercy. The fluctuations of that just now made him, a cultivator who had perfected Foundation establishment, uncontrollably take a step back. If Sun Tiangang was dealt a huge, he would suffer a severe injury, even if he didn't die. In other words, Chen deserved to be ranked 10th in the Tianyun clan. Thinking of this, he looked at the young man in the ring with a complicated gaze. This kid has only been in the clan for a short period of time, but he already has such a terrifying status of cultivation. Could he be the clan master's illegitimate son, who started cultivating since childhood and was only recently brought into the clan? That's unlikely. I know who the clan master's lover is, and they definitely wouldn't give birth to an illegitimate son. However, no matter what the truth was, he still had to announce the result. Ahem. Qinshin won this battle, so his ranking remains the same. After saying this, he left the ring, not even sparing a glance for his grandson. He couldn't help it. It was too embarrassing. It seemed that he still had to bear the blame for reforming the Tianyun clan. Otherwise, God knows what kind of beating his grandson would have gotten just now. You never accomplish success in anything. It's good for you to suffer some setbacks. After cursing his grandson in his heart, the Grand Elder disappeared into thin air. In the distance, Sun Tiangang was lying on all fours in the grass, looking at the blue sky and white clouds above his head in confusion. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? He had studied the process for half a day and got busy for a long time. He even wrote a letter of challenge, reported it, and begged his grandfather to witness it. What was all of that for? Was it just to get beaten up in public? Why is it that I'm the one who suffers and gets beaten up, but you're the one who gets to act impressive? This feels terrible. Thinking of this, Sun Tiangang couldn't help but tear up. There were countless questions in his mind, but the biggest one was this. Why was Qinshin so strong? Just as he was feeling puzzled, a few Outer Clan disciples came over and helped him up. The Outer Clan disciples' faces were covered in or dust, and their features could not be seen very clearly, but their eyes were extremely bright. Senior brother's son, the successor asked me to tell you that one has to endure hardships to become an elite. Failure is the beginning of success. You must get back up from where you fall. Failure is not scary. What's scary is losing the determination to strive to become better. Looking at the several Outer Clan disciples, whose eyes were filled with reverence, Sun Tiangang was instantly dumbfounded. Then, he rolled his eyes and passed out. Just like that, the news that Qinshin had defeated Sun Tiangang in one move quickly spread throughout the sect. Other than Xiao Wuyo, no one was astonished or dismayed. Even if the successor started cultivating right after birth, he would only have been cultivating for less than 18 years. Yet, he still had such terrifying strength and competency. At that moment, they finally understood why the successor was the successor, while they were only ordinary disciples. After this battle, Qinshin's prestige in the sect skyrocketed. Soon, he surpassed the respectable Sun Tiangang and Zhao Xiaya of the Inner Clan, thus becoming recognized as the great senior brother of the Tianyun clan. Even some elders would bow to and salute Qinshin when they saw him. Apart from that, the disciples of Tianyun clan were getting increasingly enthusiastic in cultivating. Coupled with an adequate supply of resources, the Tianyun clan began to show signs of prosperous development. Half a month later, Qinshin flew at a low altitude in the Tianyun Mountains while constantly using the system to track. Mine containing Heavenly Thunder Crystal +1. 1,000-year-old Angelica +1. Highly poisonous 10,000-year-old Gut Breaking Herb +1. Over the past half-month, Qinshin had basically flown throughout the entire Tianyun Mountains to search for and harvest some highly valuable items. However, he did not take everything, harvesting only a portion of the treasures and leaving behind some heavenly treasures with effects that were similar to ones that he already had. When he returned to the courtyard of the main peak, the morning glory wrapped itself enthusiastically around Qinshin. Master, the spiritual spring water you gave me yesterday was quite sweet. I want to drink more. Qinshin smiled and took out a bottle from his storage ring, pouring the spiritual spring water onto the morning glory. At the same time, the aroma of food was wafting out of the kitchen. Sienna is indeed a smart demon. Her culinary skills are getting better and better. She can make dark materials emanate such a heavenly aroma, Qinshin muttered to himself. At this moment, he felt somewhat satisfied. It would be great if things could go on like this forever. Of course, if he could, he would like to make his parents immortal as well. However, things didn't always go according to one's wishes. At this very moment, a melodious bell rang in Tianyun clan. Hearing this bell, Qinshin sighed gently. The bell signaled a gathering. What was supposed to arrive did after all. As expected, Master Xiaowiyo's voice rang in his ears the very next moment. Disciple, come to the clan master hall. Qinshin assented, glancing at the kitchen longingly before reluctantly flying toward the clan master hall. Soon, he arrived at the clan master hall. Besides Xiaowiyo, there was another man with a youthful face and white hair. Qinshin knew who he was immediately. He was the strongest supreme elder of the Tianyun clan, Zhao Wu, whose strength had reached the peak of the Golden Core realm. Disciple, The Wuxing clan's flying boat will arrive in a short while. You have to make this trip. Xiao Wuyo looked at Chen Shun with a somewhat helpless look in his eyes. According to past practice, when the new king ascended the throne, each clan had to send their own representatives to attend the enthronement ceremony in the capital. Yet, the Wuxing clan was sending their flying boat over to pick them up right now. Master, I understand. I'm already prepared. Chen Shin smiled and responded with a calm expression. Looking at Chen Shin's expression with a burning gaze, Xiao Wuyo stayed silent for a long time before saying seriously, "This time, Elder Zhao will go with you to protect you. I've already briefed you about the precautions in the past few days, but I still want to emphasize the most crucial point once again. Regardless of the situation, living is the ultimate goal, even if you have to compromise for the greater good. Do you understand?" "Understood." Chen Shin answered firmly with a solemn expression. "Very good." Xiao Wuyo smiled, then turned and gave a deep salute to Elder Zhao, who was beside him. "Senior, I'm counting on you to take care of this disciple of mine." Seeing the clan master salute, Zhao Wu hurriedly dodged out of the way and laughed loudly. "There is no need for you to do this, clan master. As long as I'm alive, nothing will happen to this kid." Although Zhao Wu was smiling, Chen Chen saw a trace of strong determination in his eyes, which made him feel touched. If he had been asked to do such a dangerous thing when he first joined the Tianyun clan, he would have packed his bags and run away. However, he now felt a sense of belonging with the Tianyun clan. Hence, he had no choice but to go to the capital at this time. The Wuxing clan's envoy has arrived. Everyone from Tianyun clan, hurry and receive him. At this moment, a loud and dignified voice spread across several peaks of the Tianyun clan. Chen Shin looked over and saw a large black boat, about 300 meters long, hovering quietly thousands of meters above the Tianyun clan's mountain gate, emitting a rich glow of ethereality that covered half of the Tianyun mountains. "Let's go. Let's see which member from the Wuxing clan is arriving." Looking at the giant boat, Xiao Wuyo chuckled as he made his way towards the outside of the main hall. Chen Shin and Elder Zhao both followed closely behind him. Before long, several people had arrived before the Tianyun clan's mountain gate. At this moment, a large number of Tianyun clan disciples had already gathered at the mountain gate and were arranged to line up neatly by several elders. As an affiliated sect of the Wuxing clan, the Tianyun clan was extremely autonomous, but it still had to maintain the utmost respect for the Wuxing clan on the surface. A few moments later, an old man and a young man alighted from the black gigantic ship. The two men were both dressed in white robes with black patterns, looking rather stern and aloof. As soon as they landed, there was an apparent pressure spreading around. The crowd of inner and outer clan disciples had fear written all over their faces when they were confronted. The Grand Elder hurriedly stood out at this time to salute the old man. "We welcome the arrival of the sacred envoys of the Wuxing clan with the utmost respect." The elder of the Wuxing clan nodded slightly and then cast a sweeping glance at the crowd before asking austerely, "Where is Xiao Wuyo?" "Clan master will be here soon." The Grand Elder responded with a sullen expression. It was true that the people of the Wuxing clan had arrived to pick them up and for the assertion of dominance. Otherwise, why would the giant boat over their heads continuously emit a domineering pressure, just like the two who had just alighted? They were probably out to create trouble. "Xiao Wuyo is so esteemed." "Huh," the elder said indifferently before closing his eyes. The young man beside him immediately understood his hint and took a step forward. "Since the Tianyun clan is putting on airs, I shall see if it deserves to." After he spoke, the young man from Wuxing clan's ethereality suddenly surged, forming a powerful spiritual pressure that pressed down on Sun Tiangang, who was standing at the front of the group of disciples. No one expected that the young man from Wuxing clan would attack as soon as he arrived. Sun Tiangang gritted his teeth and exclaimed, "Peak Foundation Establishment." At the same time, he pressed his feet against his palms with great difficulty to Brother, I'll go with you. Successor, I'll go with you. I'll take care of everything and warm your bed too. Successor, I have a low status of cultivation, but I am very diligent. I know that I can't be an expert until I've suffered and endured hardships. Qinshin was touched to see his fellow disciples competing to tag along with him. Doesn't this group of fools know that this trip is very dangerous? It seemed that he had spread and instilled too much positivity in the disciples during this period of time, so much that they had lost a sense of their own strengths. Watching them with a complicated gaze, Xiao Wuyo was heartened. He could imagine how the Tianyun clan would prosper once he retired and Qinshin took over as the clan master. Unfortunately, time waits for no one. If only the Tianyun clan was given another 10 years. After sighing in his heart, Xiao Wuyo looked at Qinshin. Disciple, since everyone is willing to go to the capital with you, choose a candidate yourself. Qinshin felt a little helpless. If possible, he would have just brought Zhangji along. He didn't see a need in bringing another disciple. However, when he saw the look on Elder Han's face, he felt compelled to bring another. Successor, take me. Staring at the sincere faces, Qinshin fell into a state of dilemma. At this moment, the gigantic black boat above them slowly descended and stopped in front of the Tianyun clan's entrance. There were 6 people standing silently on the edge of the deck, watching the scene with cold gazes. I've seen that woman wearing the black veil before. She's Yulanshin, the successor of the Yushui clan. Then the other 5 should be the successors of the other sects. A few inter-clan disciples whispered among themselves while looking at the 6 successors longingly. Compared to ordinary disciples, this group was much more sophisticated and domineering. The difference between them was clear. Once the elite successors of the 36 clans stood together at the capital, wouldn't they form a majestic view? They probably wouldn't dare to breathe at all. Thinking of this, many disciples who were less competent could not help but feel weak. They were not afraid of danger. Instead, they were feeling the fear of not being able to manage such a scene. Even Xiaoyo couldn't help but be worried. Although Qinshin was very competent, he was ultimately not experienced in attending grand events. Moments later, Zhao Xiaya and a few inter-clan disciples who were going through foundation building were the only ones left who dared to follow Qinshin to the event. Qinshin glanced at Zhao Xiaya, whose face was full of expectation. However, Qinshin eventually looked away at the others and finally fixed his eyes on Sun Tiangang smilingly. Junior brother son, we will be traveling far for this trip and the future is uncertain. The status of cultivation of the other junior sisters and junior brothers is not high enough, but you. Sun Tiangang was surprised to hear his words. He would have never expected to be chosen by Qinshin. Logically speaking, as the first person to challenge Qinshin, he had always thought that he was Qinshin's rival. However, now it seemed that he had been overthinking. Who would bring their nemesis along on a trip? Could it be that Qinshin had treated me as an underling all along? At this moment, Sun Tiangang felt a bit confused. On the other hand, Qinshin glanced at the 6 people standing on the flying boat with a frivolous gaze. He then turned around and asked, in the clan, "You're the only disciple whose status of cultivation is second only to me. Let me ask you, do you dare to follow me to the capital to take a look at the elites of the other clans in the state of Jin and find out what is so different about them compared to ordinary people?" Hearing these words, Sun Tiangang was instantly filled with excitement as he subconsciously exclaimed, "What's there to be afraid of?" As soon as Sun Tiangang spoke, the corners of the Grand Elder's eyes twitched a little as he sighed helplessly. Qinshin, on the other hand, looked at Sun Tiangang with immense relief, as if he was relieved that he didn't misjudge him. After confirming the candidate, Qinshin made his way to Xiao Wuyo's side and whispered, "Master, I'll have to trouble you to take care of the few pets in my courtyard." "Don't worry," Xiao Wuyo said calmly, but after hearing his words, Qinshin really felt much more relieved. In fact, there was nothing to worry about. Although the ochre yellow spirit and the morning glory were both fools, Hussiener was extremely intelligent. Besides, she had her own transmission token, so if she were to really encounter any trouble, she could contact Qinshin immediately. Moments later, Elder Han of the Wuxing clan said indifferently, "If there is nothing else, let's go." Qinshin did not hesitate after hearing his words and stepped onto the flying boat quickly, with Zhang Ji and Sun Tiangang following him. Elder Zhao, who was at the peak of the Golden Core Peak realm, was the last to get on the flying boat. Immortal cultivators had all kinds of items in their storage equipment, so there was no need to prepare much for a long trip. Watching Qinshin get on the flying boat, Xiaoyo had an urge to say something, but did not do so in the end. Chen then turned towards his master before turning to look at the inner and outer clan disciples who were all waiting steadily like little chicks. The flying boat slowly began to rise and eventually rose to a height of 1,000 meters where it propelled off into the distance. They were on the flying boat. The people of the Wuxing clan arranged the accommodation for Chen's group of 4. Heavenly guest room? Elder Zhao looked at the sign of the accommodation and frowned slightly. Hiki, distinguished guest of the Tianyun clan. Senior Brother Duan said that Saint Chen's strength is amazing and he far surpasses the successors of other clans, so he is worthy of the heavenly guest room. After he spoke, the person from the Wuxing clan bade farewell to the group respectfully. After he left, Chen asked curiously, "What? Could it be that there is something more to this heavenly guest room?" Elder Zhao nodded and said softly, "This is not the first time I've been on one of the Wuxing clan's flying boats. There is only one heavenly guest room, for Earth guest rooms, and 16 human guest rooms on it. The Wuxing clan is being such a good host, huh?" Sun Tiangang remarked in astonishment. He thought that he would be given a hard time when he arrived at the territory of the Wuxing clan. However, he never expected to be given the best room as soon as he boarded. However, Chen came to a sudden realization. He was not a fool like Sun Tiangang. Of the 8 clans in the north, the Tianyun clan was ranked second while the White Tiger clan was ranked first. However, the successors of the White Tiger clan had yet to board at this time. Yet, Chen's group had already been given the best room. What would the successors of the White Tiger clan think? They would probably be irked. The Wuxing clan was clearly trying to sow discord and create trouble among the 8 clans in the north. We'll stay then. The Tianyun clan is not so weak as to be too afraid to stay in a guest room. Elder Zhao rolled his eyes at Sun Tiangang and finally made his decision. Chen, who was standing at the side, also nodded slightly while the two of them took the lead to enter the guest room. Sun Tiangang and Zhang Ji both looked at each other in confusion, not understanding the meaning of Elder Zhao's words. At last, they had no choice but to shake their heads and follow behind with a look of bewilderment on each of their faces. The heavenly guest room was extremely spacious. It was a large suite and had plenty of space for 4. Each of the group members had a different expression upon entering. After entering, Zhang Ji whispered, "Big brother, why do I feel that it is not as luxurious as the Spring Breeze Pavilion in Blue Wind City? The Spring Breeze Pavilion is part of the mortal world, so it's very fancy. Any bed in this room is worth a few Spring Breeze Pavilions." Chen shook his head as a response. If he had seen correctly, even the table which was across the room was made of an entire slab of spirit stone, worth no less than 1,000 spirit stones. It was just a guest room, and yet it was so well equipped. Clearly, the Wuxing clan had a strong background. After seeing the accommodation, Elder Zhao and Sun Tiangang remained indoors to cultivate while Chen and Zhang Ji returned to the deck. At this moment, the 6 successors were standing by the railing of the deck and looking down at the scenery below. Chen leaned over the ledge. "System, apart from myself, who is the strongest within the nearest 30 meters? Yulanxin, who's 12 meters towards the left in front of you. Her status of cultivation is in the late stage of foundation building." Hearing the system's answer, Chen looked towards the back of the figure in the distance who was wearing a black veil. She was simply a replica of his master's wife. Even their clothing style was the same. Since Yulanxin was the strongest, it meant that the information given by his master was correct. Apart from the Tianyun clan and the White Tiger clan, the successors of the other 6 clans were not too competent. According to the information, 4 of the 6 successors were in the late stage of foundation building, while the other 2 were in the middle of foundation building. Those who were in the late stage of foundation building were all right, but those who were in the middle stage were too weak. Of course, if he did not join the Tianyun clan would probably have only sent Sun Tiangang. However, they would definitely overwhelm Sun Tiangang with resources to allow him to surge to the late stage of foundation building. Seemingly sensing that someone was looking at her, Yulanxin turned around and saw that it was Chen. A trace of curiosity flashed in her eyes, and she took the initiative to approach Chen before bowing to him. "Greetings, Senior Brother Chen. I'm Lanxin. Master has mentioned to me that Chen, a disciple of the Tianyun clan, is incredibly talented. After meeting you today, I realized that you really live up to your name." Chen was slightly stunned to hear her words, as he did not expect this seemingly aloof successor to approach him and curry favor with him right away. Just as he was about to answer with some compliments, Yulanxin suddenly lowered her voice again. Senior Brother Chin, Master has already instructed me that no matter what happens on this trip, all the people of the Yushui clan will be following your lead. Huh? Chin Chin was a bit surprised. This trip actually concerned the rise and fall of a clan. Yet, his master's wife actually gave such an order. Do I look that trustworthy? However, since she had taken the initiative to approach him, there was no reason for him to refute. After all, more people meant more strength. After thinking about it, Shinshin responded with a smile. You're being too polite. Junior sister, you and I are on the same side to begin with. Of course we should work together. Senior brother, you're right. What do you think of this trip? Yulanshin asked again. The two of them began chatting on the deck with each other. In the beginning, Yulanshin merely wanted to get to know Shinshin better, but as the two continued to talk, she couldn't stop. She was looking forward to getting to know him better because he seemed to always think differently from others and would say shocking things. No wonder Master said that this guy is not a good person and wants me to listen lest he is nonsense. Lest I get cheated. Now it seems that what she said is true. Yulanshin looked at Chun Chun, who was giving out instructions, secretly keeping her guard up. At this moment, the flying boat suddenly stopped as the elders of the Wuxing clan alighted from the boat together with Duan Bing. Chun Chun looked down, only to see the deep mountains and old forests below. There was a majestic building in the midst of the deep mountains and old forests. This is the White Tiger clan, which ranks first among the 8 clans in the north and third among the 36 clans of state of Jin. Chun Chun muttered. Looking at the land below, he didn't think that the White Tiger clan's territory was any better than that of the Tianyun clan. Just as he was about to look through the clouds to observe the scene below, a violent fluctuation of ethereality came from below. After about 5 minutes, the ethereality fluctuation disappeared. After another 3 minutes, Duan Bing and Elder Han of the Wuxing clan got back onto the flying boat. However, this time, Duan Bing was in a worse state than he was when boarding at the Tianyun clan. Not only was his face swollen after being beaten up terribly, he even lost a tooth and anger was written all over his face. For people were following behind him. The leader of the 4 was a man who was wearing a set of white full-body armor. His entire face was covered by the armor, with only an indifferent pair of eyes exposed. The more impressive thing was that he would emit a cold and domineering aura at all times, which seemed more murderous as opposed to the chilliness of the supreme Wangqing Dao. Duan Bing could not help but shudder. Several other saints and successors on the deck became visibly horrified and fearful when they caught sight of the armored man as they subconsciously took a few steps back. The armored man was famous among the 8 clans of the north, known to all as a murderous elite, the best of his generation. He was Yi Wuxing, the successor of the White Tiger clan. Yi Wuxing, White Tiger Holy Spirit body at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm and cultivates the White Tiger battle heavenly technique. Countless disciples of the demon clan were killed by him. 2 years ago, he killed the young master of the 3rd division of the demon clan in the middle of a great battle. He's an expert within the younger generation. Chun Chun looked at the armored man and recalled the information that his master had told him. The difference between the successors was also massive, and some of them were just stand-ins for the real successors. How strong could those successors be? Yi Wuxing, who was standing in front, was a true successor who was highly valued by the White Tiger clan since his early days of cultivation. Not to mention, he was also a huge fan of battles and had been through countless battles before. Over time, he had gained a very expansive collection of battle experiences. Under such circumstances, it was normal for Duan Bing to be beaten up badly. Yi Wuxing was wearing a full suit of armor and following behind a disciple of the Wuxing clan. Soon, they arrived at the residence that the Wuxing clan had arranged for them. Upon sight of the sign of the guest room, an old man behind Yi Wuxing immediately flew into a rage. Earth guest room? What do you mean? The Wuxing clan disciple couldn't help but shiver when a golden core powerhouse glanced at him with a deathly stare. He then said carefully, the heavenly room is occupied by several people from the Tianyun clan. Elder Han and senior brother Duan think that the successor of the Tianyun clan is the strongest successor on this trip, so he deserves to stay in the heavenly room. As soon as he said those words, the 4 people from the White Tiger clan all turned towards him at the same time, not hiding the icy coldness in their eyes at all. One of the accompanying disciples even said directly, "What a joke. Senior brother Yi is the recognized #1 cultivator of the young generation in the 8 northern sects. Can you be more clever in your means of sowing discord?" Another accompanying disciple chimed in, "Yes, and even if you give the heavenly guest room to the Tianyun clan, Would they dare to stay there? Hearing the question, the Wuxing clan disciples smiled awkwardly and responded, "They're obviously competent. Why wouldn't they dare?" "You." The two accompanying disciples hollered furiously before turning to look at the crowd. Moments later, they saw Qinshin. Seeing this scene, Duan Bing, who had been beaten up and bruised badly, grew excited and began yelling in his heart, "Fight! Fight!" However, things didn't go as planned, and just as the two accompanying disciples were about to go and question Qinshin, Yi Wuxing, who had been staying silent, spoke up. "Go in." After speaking coldly, Yi Wuxing stared at Qinshin coldly and then turned around to enter the Earth guest room. Seeing this, the other three, even the Golden Core Elder, could only follow behind in silence. "Oh gosh, he scared the wits out of me." After waiting for Yi Wuxing to leave, Yulanxin suddenly patted her chest with fear. After doing so, she seemed to realize that she had lost her composure and quickly put on a look of aloofness again. Looking at this scene, the corners of Chun Chen's eyes twitched. He reckoned that she had probably just been pretending to be aloof all along. She herself was the only one who knew how silly she was. Thinking of this, Chin Chin's face gradually became cold while the gaze in his eyes became deeper. Fortunately, he was already really cold and aloof, so he didn't have to pretend. Seeing Chun Chin's indifference, Yulanxin said in surprise, "Senior brother Chun, Yi Wuxing just shot you such a murderous glance. Aren't you afraid?" "Oh, is that so? Too bad. I don't fear anyone in the younger generation of the state of Jin," Chin Chin said coldly, with a bolt of lightning flashing in his eyes. It was real lightning that was blue in color, crackling, and popping. Yulanxin stared wide-eyed with shock, unable to maintain the aloof expression on her face. "Sorry, the energy in my body is too massive to be contained. It will spill out from time to time." After he spoke calmly, Chin Chin could no longer be bothered to entertain Yulanxin. Instead, he began walking towards the heavenly guest room slowly while Yulanxin stared at his mysterious back. The way he walked suavely was exactly the same as the way Yi Wuxing walked. Meanwhile, in the king's palace in the capital of the state of Jin, there was an old man and a young man sitting on the ground before the throne with an indifferent expression. The old man then said it differently, "Chongya, the elites of the 35 clans should be on their way. The preparations made in the capital should almost be done as well. They're just a bunch of bumpkins." "Master, you're insulting the word elite by calling them so," the young man said in a deep voice without disdain in his eyes. He simply said so calmly, as if he was just stating facts. "A few of them are not bad, especially Lin Jin from the Green Dragon sect and Yi Wuxing from the White Tiger clan, both of whom have strength close to the perfected stage of foundation establishment. This time, they are reopening the battle of the ranking of the 36 clans during your ascension to the throne. They might be the only variables," the elder explained with a glow in his eyes. The ranking of the 36 clans was set hundreds of years ago. In the past hundreds of years, too much had happened, and some clans fell while some rose. The previous rankings were no longer accurate. Of course, the Wuxing clan did not care about the ranking. The so-called ranking battle was just an excuse. The ranking battle was open to all clans in the state of Jin, not only the 36 clans. The Wuxing clan had already supported several clans, so that when the ranking battle really began, the few clans would allow them to get rid of those that defied the Wuxing clan. When the time came for them to force those clans to give up the mountains that were rich in spiritual energy, they would be able to justify their actions. The other wavering sects would naturally stand on the Wuxing clan's side after watching from the side. It was also the most gentle way that the Wuxing clan could unify the 36 sects. It was the best strategy. Getting violent and physical right away would not be a good choice, as the other demon clans could take advantage. "Don't worry, Master. If the Green Dragon clan and the White Tiger clan refuse to be unified, I will severely injure Lin Jin or Yi Wuxing before challenging the other sections. The plan will be foolproof." At this moment, the corners of the young man's mouth curled slightly, and for once, there was an expression on his face. Looking at the young man in front of him, the old man felt heartened and relieved. After thousands of years, a suitable candidate for practicing the supreme Wangqing Dao had finally appeared in the royal family, allowing the Wuxing clan's force to enter the impenetrable royal family. Without the restraint of the royal family, it would be a perfect opportunity for the Wuxing clan to unify the 36 sections. Now, they were just missing one last element. Once it was completed, The state of Jin would be politically and religiously unified like the state of Zhou, while the clan master of the Wuxing clan would become the king. The Wuxing clan would also become the ultimate leader within the state of Jin. You naturally have to fight. During the ranking battle, you must show formidable strength so as to deter those wavering clans. At this point, they do not know about the ranking battle yet, and you happen to have made preparations. You must understand that you have to devote all your strength. The old man said with a smile. Seeing that the master who practiced the supreme Wang Qing Dao was laughing, the young man grew a little surprised, even becoming distracted for a short moment. His expression suddenly became ferocious. Don't worry, master. Those who obey me will prosper. Those who disobey me will die. My Wuxing clan is determined to unify the 36 sects. Qinshan returned to the cabin and began to cultivate, suddenly finding it more boring without the little demons around. Meanwhile, Zhang Ji looked through the window at the scenery outside of his room, sighing every now and then. As for Elder Zhao, who was at the Golden Core realm, he had been staying still since he began meditating on the boat. Time flowed like water. 2 days later, the speed of the giant boat gradually slowed down. Through the window, they saw a majestic city from afar. The size of the city was no less than that of the Tianyan Mountains, and the walls were as high as 100 meters. The dense ethereality inside was even greater than that of the Tianyan Mountains. Inside the giant city, there were all sorts of stores, all of which were extremely crowded, with most of the crowd consisting of cultivators. It is more than 10 times bigger than Jizhou City. Qinshan marveled in his heart, looking at the giant city below. The Yin city of state of Jin was said to have a population of nearly 10 million. There weren't that many buildings that had dozens of floors, but the fact that it could accommodate so many people showed how large the surface area truly was. Fellow successors, we have arrived at Yin City, which is part of the capital. The voice of Elder Han of Wuxing clan sounded in his ears, followed by the slow descent of the giant boat. Soon, it stopped on a huge platform near the city wall. At this moment, there was already a huge crowd below the city wall, roughly more than 10,000 people. Big brother, there are so many people, what are they doing? Zhang Ji couldn't help but shiver. He was born in a small county and clearly hadn't witnessed such a scene before. Even Sun Tiangang had a slight change of expression. Being watched by tens of thousands of people at the same time was a kind of pressure that one would never understand unless they experienced it themselves. I don't know. Maybe they're here to see us elites in the hope of gaining some knowledge, Qinshan blurted out, unable to think of any other reason. At that moment, Yi Wuxing of the White Tiger clan took the lead and got off the giant boat. The crowd instantly broke out into a commotion. That's Yi Wuxing, the successor of the White Tiger clan. So handsome. He's so cool. He's one of the top 3 successors. Tens of thousands of people were all talking at the same time. The sounds they made deafening. The 2 accompanying disciples of the White Tiger clan shuddered as they walked, unlike Yi Wuxing, who was still walking at a steady pace and shrouded in full body armor, as if the commotion that was going on outside did not affect him in the slightest. However, before he could take 2 steps, a loud voice rang out from the crowd. Successor Yi, we are offering you 1,000 spirit stones and invite you to stay at the Immortal Fate Inn. Hearing these words, Zhang Ji rubbed his ears, thinking he had heard incorrectly. Not only did they not have to pay any spirit stones for staying in the inn, they would be given spirit stones instead? Is everything in the capital a charity organization? He wondered. Before he could truly understand what was going on, a high-pitched female voice sounded from the crowd. Successor Yi, I'm offering you 1,500 spirit stones to stay in the Drunken Red House, and you may also take 2 girls with you when you leave. Hearing these words, even the cool Yi Wuxing's pace became erratic. On the giant boat, Qinshan was green with envy at the scene in front of him. Those merchants were looking for spokespersons. Putting aside the amount of traffic that would be brought about by having successors living in their shops, even if the successors were gone, they would have a marketing gimmick in the future. People would naturally think that the environment would be great if the prestigious successors had chosen to live there. I wonder how much the successor of my Tianyan clan is worth. Qinshan muttered, filled with both anticipation and anxiety. A few moments later, Yi Wuxing was taken away by someone from a major restaurant. However, no one knew if the deal had been cinched afterwards. Once Yi Wuxing left, those merchants shifted their attention to the successors of other clans. However, compared to Yi Wuxing, the successors were offered far lower prices, with the highest being only 500 spirit stones. Those successors were self-aware too. Everything in the capital cost spirit stones, and they were content with receiving spirit stones from their place of accommodation. They felt no need to compare themselves to Yi Wuxing. Hence, they were soon picked up by a few luxury carriages. Yulanqing, who appeared next, caused the scene to reach a small. Yulanqing, the successor of the Yushui clan, is virtuous and intelligent, as her name implies. She's a famous wise woman in the state of Qi. She's so beautiful. Staring at Yulanqing's back, Qinshan criticized her contemptuously in his heart. This girl looks aloof and cold, but she's actually thinking about earning spirit stones. Otherwise, why would she be walking so slowly? Isn't she simply waiting for others to bid for her? She's strutting like a model too. Is that necessary? Pushed. I don't care. Qinshan was feeling sour because the prices some of the inns and restaurants offered for her had already soared to roughly the same level as those offered to Wuxing. He couldn't help it, since women were naturally more attractive than men. Among the successors of the 36 clans, only 7 were female, and each one of them was extremely beautiful. Even if they lacked competency, their status and gender would allow them to trump all other successors. However, the representatives of the brothels would never dare to make a sound, for fear that they would be killed on the spot. "Big brother, let's go," Zhang Ji said timidly. Regardless of how much of a he was, he understood what was going on. Besides, he knew how prideful Qinshan was. After thinking about it, he dared not continue. "Go." Qinshan descended from the flying boat with a sullen expression. He could not believe it. Even if he wasn't famous, he still had a handsome face. With such a handsome face, shouldn't he be surpassing Yi Wuxing? Who's that? I don't know. He seems to be the successor of a certain sect, but why haven't I ever heard of him? Has he made any great accomplishments? No, he's probably a temporary successor. Hearing the whispers coming from the crowd, Qinshan's face became extremely tempestuous. I'm just a few years late. Surely I'm better than those spare tires. Big brother, in a few days you'll be breaking through the Golden Core realm. You have to find an empty place to stay at. Zhang Ji's sudden yelling drowned out the voices of the crowd. Hearing those words, Qinshan was almost moved to tears. Zhang Ji has finally wised up a little. Although his words are a bit harsh, he has great judgment. Ahem. It's better not to break through the Golden Core realm in this city. My heavenly tribulation is too powerful. I'm afraid of causing major damage, Qinshan answered in a serious manner. The group of people below looked at each other after hearing those words. Breaking through the Golden Core stage? Is this unknown successor who popped out of nowhere really that strong? Doesn't that mean that he's comparable to Yi Wuxing? How about I offer 1,000 spirit stones? However, after a few moments, the topic of discussion began to change. The merchants of the city were all intelligent. I guess it's all a lie. Look at that person who just spoke. His face is flushed and his eyes are glowing. I can tell by just a glance that he's lying. It does seem so. Hearing the discussion, Zhang Ji became more and more nervous as sweat flowed down his face. The merchants became more and more disdainful when they saw that. By the time Qinshan had almost reached the end of the road, there wasn't a single inn or restaurant willing to invite Qinshan and the others in. Sun Tiangang and Elder Zhao were both extremely embarrassed. Who would have thought that the successor of the Tianyun clan would be treated that way? Others were staying for free, and even receiving spirit stones. Could it be that they had to pay spirit stones for accommodation? Just as they were feeling miserable, an apprehensive and anxious voice sounded out from the crowd. That successor. Would you like to stay in the Iran residence? We are willing to pay 200. No, 300 spirit stones. As soon as she said that, the people next to her attempted to change her mind. Jionyang, this successor is not very famous. Not many people in the capital know about him. Giving him 300 spirit stones will not bring us fame. In fact, it'll definitely be a huge loss. Exactly, Jionyang. It wasn't easy for your mother to keep this brothel running, and she handed it down to you, so you can't squander it away. I advise you to wait for the next flying boat. Only 2 have arrived. Hearing the voices of the people around her, the woman named Jionyang blushed slightly, softly saying, with 300 spirit stones, I can't invite other successors too. Besides, just because he isn't famous now doesn't mean that his future is bleak. This saint seems to have an extraordinary temperament. Huh. Before she could finish her words, a disdainful voice sounded from the side. You're still too young. I'm telling you, some successors are just stand-ins who might be stripped of their positions in just a short while. Just as these people were unabashedly discussing this matter, a wave of spiritual pressure blasted towards them, causing the crowd to be blasted back several meters. Immediately afterwards, a sorrowful yet furious voice sounded from afar. "Miss, just because of what you've just said, I've decided to stay at your place." When he said those words, everyone fell silent for a moment. Immediately after that, everyone started jeering. "Jeonyang, you've been tricked. 300 spirit stones is not a small amount." Hearing the words of the naysayers, the girl's face turned red and she hurriedly sneaked out of the crowd to bow to Qinshin. "Successor, please come with me." After saying that, she walked towards a well-decorated carriage in the distance. Seeing this, Qinshin wanted to follow behind her, but he was pulled back by Elder Zhao. "Qinshin, if I heard correctly, that is a brothel." Zhang Ji and Sun Tiangang both lowered their heads when they heard that, but they were secretly curious about the place. They had never been to a brothel before. Faced with Elder Zhao's interrogation, Qinshin put on a solemn expression and replied, "Elder Zhao, it's harder to find a confidant than it is to earn money. I can tell by just a glance that the woman has an extraordinary temperament and judgment. Why should we discriminate against her because of her profession?" Elder Zhao was speechless after hearing those words. "I just praised you, didn't I?" He made it sound so nice. However, the clan master had already said that Qinshin would be in charge of everything. Since Qinshin wanted to stay there, they ought to go ahead with the plan. Letting out a long sigh, Elder Zhao remained silent. A group of people got into Iranin's carriage, driving along the wide street towards the distance. "Successor, here are some spirit stones for you. Please count them." Jeonyang was a bit restrained when facing the people of Tianyun clan. Unlike the owners of the large brothels, who had the backing of important ministers of the dynasty, she didn't dare to joke or laugh with those successors. She was just a girl who had just inherited her family's business. If hadn't wanted to fulfill her mother's dream, she would never have taken over Iranin. 5th tier of Qi training. Indeed, the people in the capital are different from those in Jizhou. Qinshin grabbed the storage bag handed over to him by Jeonyang and directly put it into his storage ring, not giving it a single glance. Jeonyang bowed and politely said, "I've embarrassed myself, successor. My status of cultivation is far from being comparable to the big bosses, and I'm worlds apart from the successors." Truth be told, she did not have high hopes before she invited Qinshin, and she hadn't really expected him to agree. Besides, she didn't even know which clan he was from. A few moments later, the carriage stopped in front of a 5-story high-rise building. At that moment, the two parties in the carriage already had a certain understanding of each other. After learning that Qinshin belonged to the Tianyun clan, which ranked 13th among the 36 sects, and Jeonyang was overjoyed, her respect for Qinshin and the rest instantly increasing. As a result, as soon as they got out of the carriage, several girls on the balcony on the 2nd floor began waving at Qinshin and the others. "Master, come and have some fun. Sir, you're so handsome. Do you dare to fight with us? Old sir, you can have some food." Hearing these words, Elder Zhao, who was at the peak of the Golden Core realm, had a furious expression on his face. He almost couldn't control his breathing. However, a scene that seemed even more unacceptable to him soon occurred. At that moment, a woman wearing a black veil appeared in the distance. "Senior Brother Zhao, I didn't expect you to be such a person. You don't respect yourself even though you're so old. Lanqin asked me to inform you that the Yushui clan lives in the Spirit Wind Pavilion. If there is anything you need, just send your disciples directly to the Spirit Wind Pavilion." After saying this, the woman in the black veil snorted coldly, turning her head before leaving. Qinshin had met that woman before. She was the Golden Core elder sent by the Yushui clan to protect Yulanqin. He guessed from her tone that she knew Elder Zhao. Zhao Elder stared at her back, his face flushed red. He then chased after her, pleading, "Junior Sister Jiang, listen to my explanation. Why aren't you going back yet? This is the successor of the Tianyun clan. That elder is a Golden Core elder of the Tianyun clan." Jeonyang was also embarrassed beyond words, scolding a few girls on the 2nd floor. The faces of those girls turned pale when they heard that, cringing immediately. Seeing this scene, Qinshin sighed. Iranin had a good name, but unfortunately, the girls were very lowly. No wonder they were poor. "I'm sorry if the girls have offended the successor. They don't know how to behave themselves. I'll take you all to your room now." After saying softly, Jeonyang led the way, soon bringing Qinshin and the others to several luxurious rooms. Although the rooms seemed luxurious, there were basically no spiritual objects in there, which was considered shabby in the capital. Qinshin did not point this out, simply walking in silently. "Successor, if you need anything, feel free to let me know," Jeonyang said. feeling a sense of inferiority when she saw Qinchin's expressionless face. In fact, those 300 spirit stones were the last of the assets that her mother had bequeathed to her, and according to her mother's plan, they should have been used for recruiting some beautiful girls. However, in a moment of eagerness, she had used them to invite the successor, Qinchin. It seemed that the environment of her brothel was really not worthy of the successor. Sighing secretly, Jionyang silently retreated. In the blink of an eye, Qinchin had already stayed in Iranin for half a day. Zhang Ji and Sun Tiangang both went out to inquire after the latest news, while he remained in the Iranin to look after things. It was almost dinner time when a majestic voice suddenly rang out from in front of the Iranin. "I am Wang Shao, the Imperial Forest Army, and I would like to see the successor of the Tianyun clan." Hearing this, a gleam of light flashed in Qinchin's eyes, and he walked out of his room. There were 2 armored soldiers in front of him, both of whom had a status of cultivation. Their faces were solemn, and it was obvious that they were elites. "I'm the successor of the Tianyun clan. What's going on? His Majesty has ordered that the enthronement ceremony be held at noon in 2 days. There will be important announcements during the event. Please use this token to gain entry to the palace." As he spoke, the soldier respectfully handed an ancient token to Qinchin. Qinchin grabbed the token and nodded in assent. There were quite a few girls peeping at the scene from within Iranin, their eyes glistening with admiration. He's really a successor. Jionyang didn't get deceived. Even the soldiers of the Imperial Army are so polite to him. He's so dignified. The Imperial soldiers actually came to a brothel like ours. We can brag to our sisters. Those girls obviously did not have any status of cultivation. Besides, Qinchin and the Imperial soldiers were able to hear everything they had said. The Imperial soldiers' faces changed slightly when they heard the chatter. After bidding goodbye, they turned their heads and left, soon vanishing at the end of the road. They slowed down only after running for hundreds of meters. The successor of the Tianyun clan is actually staying in such a place. How embarrassing. I usually don't come to such a low-class brothel. I didn't expect this successor to. Seems like saintly successors are not much nobler than us. While the 2 of them were discussing this matter, galloping sounds could be heard from the street in the distance. The carriages were extremely luxurious and fast, with spiritual light even flickering around some horses. This seems to be the carriage from the drunken Red Inn. The carriage behind that one belongs to Floral Moon House, which is the 2nd best brothel in the capital. They're going to Iranin. What's going on? The 2 Imperial guards looked at each other. A moment later, one of them seemed to have had an epiphany. I know. None of the successors of the other 35 clans was willing to stay in a brothel, regardless of how many spirit stones they had been offered. The successor of the Tianyun clan is an exception, so those big brothels are thinking of poaching him away. Another Imperial guard figured it out after hearing his words. Everyone wants pride, but he's the only one who's shameless. His shamelessness is rare. However, these carriages, there are too many of them. There were a total of 18 carriages, which meant that 18 brothels had sent representatives. Would they really vie for a successor? An important announcement? Qinchin stood in front of Iranin, an ominous feeling surging through his heart. The so-called major event was most likely related to the unification of the 36 clans. However, they didn't know what tactics the Wuxing clan would use. Just as he was pondering over it, da-da-da, the sounds of carriages booming sounded from a short distance away. Even though the capital's road was extremely solid, Qinchin could still sense the ground quaking. We're going to war. Which unlucky guy could warrant so many people? After muttering a sentence to himself, Qinchin hurriedly retreated back to Iran and to save himself from being embroiled in the conflict later on. Phew. A commotion broke out as more than 10 luxurious carriages stopped in front of the Iran Inn in an orderly manner. Hearing the commotion, the girls from Iran Inn ran out enthusiastically. Are the results of inviting a successor to stay in the inn so immediate? How many distinguished guests have arrived? The group of girls were discussing the matter amongst themselves while taking small steps. Although they were inferior to other, much more beautiful girls, they were very dedicated to their work. However, as soon as they stepped out and saw the signs on the carriages, they all retreated in astonishment, scrambling back into Iran Inn. What the? They are all industry leaders. What are they doing here in a lousy place like Iran Inn? I, Hua Hongyin, from the Drunken Red House, am here to visit the successor of the Tianyun clan. Successor? Will you come out to see me? A gentle voice sounded out from outside Iran Inn, and Qinshan suddenly paused, a look of disbelief flashing through his eyes. He's here to look for me? Although he was amazed, Qinshan nonetheless adjusted his expression and slowly walked out. By the time he arrived outside Iran Inn, a gentlemanly, dignified, and domineering successor had appeared. Why do you all want to see me? Qinshan asked indifferently. The Drunken Red House was a woman in her 30s, sultry, charming, and flamboyantly dressed, although she could never be called tacky. When she saw Qinshan's indifferent face, she smiled and spoke softly, Successor, to be honest, I would like to ask you to move to the Drunken Red House. This shabby place is really not worthy of you, a successor. Hearing these words, Qinshan raised his eyebrows, seeming to have understood something. You were present when I arrived at the capital, correct? Why didn't you invite me then? Hua Hongyin's cheeks turned slightly red when she thought about it. She couldn't possibly voice what she was thinking. I didn't think about it before, as I found out later that you were the only shameless successor among all the ones present. Seeing her expression, Qinshan sneered. I've already accepted someone else's spirit stones. How can I go back on my word? You've underestimated me. After saying those words, Qinshan turned around and went to Iran Inn. As soon as he turned around, he couldn't help but smile. You're ignoring me today, so tomorrow I'll make sure you're too lowly to be deserving of me. No, you ignored me that afternoon, and now you can't up to me. Haha. Staring at Qinshan's back, Hua Hongyin thought in disdain, you're staying in a brothel for 300 spirit stones, yet you're blaming me for belittling you? Pushed. However, she still had to extend the invitation, lest a small brothel get to boast that they managed to get a successor to stay at their place. If that happened, they would become the laughingstock of the entire industry. With that in mind, she shouted out, the Drunken Red House is willing to offer the successor 1,000 spirit stones, and the 300 spirit stones owed to Iran will also be paid by the Drunken Red House. She didn't believe that the shameless successor would be willing to give up 1,000 spirit stones for 300 spirit stones. However, as soon as she said those words, an elder beside her spoke up coldly, the Floral Moon House is offering 1,100 spirit stones. Another voiced a better offer, yelling, the Luoxiang Court is offering 1,300 spirit stones. In just a few moments, the price had risen to 2,000 spirit stones. Qinshan secretly rejoiced, thinking, that's about the same price as what Yu Wuxian was offered, right? Hua Hongyin looked at her competitors, turning red with anger. She knew that they would definitely create trouble. The Drunken Red House is offering 2,500 spirit stones. Successor, you can also pick 2 girls to take away with you when you leave. In Iran Inn, Jionyong silently listened to the bidding taking place outside of her establishment, a trace of bitterness present in her eyes. He would be getting paid 2,500 spirit stones and be allowed to take 2 girls away too. No one would be able to turn down such a treatment. It would take the Drunken Red House a long time to earn back such a large amount of spirit stones, but it couldn't be helped, as fame was the most important element of this industry. Get lost. I'm not in need of spirit stones. However, a stern holler from outside the house interrupted her thoughts, leaving her speechless. The group of pimps outside were dumbfounded. Is this what humans ought to be saying? You are not short of spirit stones? Even the king of the nation doesn't dare say that with so much gusto, let alone you, a successor who is staying in a brothel for 300 spirit stones. However, although they were disdainful towards Qinshan, they could not show it on their faces. Just when they were thinking about how to impress Qinshan, a woman slowly descended from a carriage. This woman was wearing a purple dress, and although it was a bright color, it simply looked plain on her. That was because she was so beautiful, her clothes appeared lackluster. Seeing the charm that she was exuding, Hua Hongyin's expression changed dramatically. The #1 ravishing beauty of the capital, Gu Qiqing. The people around her couldn't help but take 2 steps backwards as a sign of respect for the big shots of the industry. She was an impressive beauty who was the star of Floral Moon House, the second best brothel in the nation. There were 8 beauties in Red Drunken House, but they could only barely surpass her with their combined efforts. The successor. Gu Qiqing walked towards Qinshan slowly, each step extremely lively. The way she addressed him as the successor was incredibly attractive and alluring too, and her words seemed more melodious than the songs of the world. Impressive. Qinshan sighed and exclaimed in his heart. If the girls of Iran Inn were bronze and Hua Hongyin was considered silver, Then the woman in front of him was gold. Just her voice alone was enough to make his body turn soft. Gu Qiqing walked up to Chen Chen, her eyes filled with helplessness as she softly said, "Where can I find a soulmate in this world? Although there are 36 sects in the state of Jin, you're the only successor who is willing to give us people, who run a lowly business, a chance. I came here to see what an extraordinary person the successor of the Tianyun clan really is. Now that I've seen you." At this juncture, Gu Qiqing, who initially looked pitiful, was suddenly full of reverence. Such an expression on the most beautiful woman's face could definitely boost a man's ego. The people around them immediately got goosebumps. The best beauty in the capital was extremely terrifying. As soon as she spoke, she implicated those who were innocent. And Chen Chen asked curiously, "You're a refined gentleman," Gu Qiqing said with extreme adoration in her eyes. "Oh my God." Chen Chen couldn't help but take a step backwards. Although he knew that it was an appropriate phrase for describing him, it sounded extremely mushy when she said it. "I wonder if you can come with me to the Floral Moon House for a while. I would like to express my admiration for you. If you like the Iran Inn successor, I will also take care of it in the future." While speaking, Gu Qiqing looked at Iran Inn's signboard with sympathy. Chen Chen was amazed. No wonder she's called the most ravishing beauty. Her looks and EQ are definitely worthy of that title. As he thought there, he swallowed his saliva and asked, "If I go to the Floral Moon House, do I have to pay spirit stones?" Gu Qiqing covered her mouth and laughed softly. "Successor, you and I are friends and confidants. Why mention money? It's hard to find confidants. I understand that." After saying that, Gu Qiqing had a triumphant smile on her face. This successor could not escape her clutches after all. She had already found dozens of novel authors before she arrived. When the time came, she would get them to write a few poignant love stories and spread it everywhere. Floral Moon House's customer traffic would definitely be multiplied several times over very soon. They might even be able to suppress the drunken Red House in the future. Just as she was thinking about these idealistic things, Chen Chen's face suddenly turned cold, pointing to the road in the distance. "You want me to be a freeloader? Am I that kind of person? Get lost." Before the others could react, Chen Chen had already entered Iran Inn and closed the door. Gu Qiqing was still smiling, but her smile had stiffened. Freeloader. It had been a long time since she heard such a disdainful word, and she began to recall the time when she first joined the industry. "Little demon, I won't fall for your tricks." Haha. Hua Hongyan got onto the carriage and left in high spirits. Although she was not able to convince Chen Chen to stay at her brothel, she was pleased to have seen him. The other pimps roughly felt the same, looking at Gu Qiqing playfully. "Miss, what should we do?" the old man from the Floral Moon House asked awkwardly. After hearing that, Gu Qiqing turned to look at the signboard of Iran Inn, stomping her feet furiously before getting into the carriage. "What else can we do? Go." In the carriage, Gu Qiqing was getting angrier and angrier. "I, Gu Qiqing, am the most beautiful woman in the nation. I get numerous spirit stones just by talking to others, but I didn't earn a single spirit stone after saying so many nice things to him today. Yet he claims that he isn't a freeloader. Pushed. He's the greatest freeloader in the world. Does he really think he'll be considered a freeloader after hiring A and getting the deed done for free? He's not famous, and yet he dares to be so conceited. Humph. I'm bearing this grudge," Gu Qiqing thought, secretly holding a grudge. Outside the carriage, the old man cautiously asked, "Miss, what about those stupid novel writers? Do we still have to write poignant love stories?" "Get lost. Tell them all to get lost." Chen Chen returned to Iran in a good mood. He had been showered with compliments for nothing, and he didn't have to pay for any of it. Hence, he was extremely comfortable. On the other hand, and Junyang was secretly observing the Tianyun clan's successor from afar, her face puzzled. She just couldn't understand him. Why did the successor insist on staying in Iran? If it was for spirit stones, that wouldn't make sense, because the drunken Red House had offered him 2,500 spirit stones. If he was after beauty, and Jionyang knew that Gu Qiqing was far superior to her. And here lay the problem. What was the successor after? The more she thought about it, the more curious she became. She felt like the successor of the Tianyun clan was so elusive and mysterious, with no one able to understand him. At that moment, Zhang Ji and Sun Tiangang walked in from outside. "Brother, I've already inquired about the accommodations of the successors of the various clans. There is more information. Just take a look." While speaking, he handed a slip of paper to Chen Chen. Chen Chen grabbed it, scanning it casually before etching all the information into his mind. Seeing this, Sun Tiangang also took out a slip of paper, saying timidly, "These are the major events that will be happening in the city in these 2 days, senior brother. Please read it." "Huh? You're so polite today, huh? You actually know to call me senior brother," Shinshin commented with some surprise. He grabbed the note and glanced at it, thinking, wow, there are going to be 28 auctions. They're trying to hold down the successors, huh? However, as he continued to read, his expression began to turn sullen. This was because there were still quite a few gatherings among the successors of the 36 clans. For example, the 8 clans of the north had agreed to meet at the Tiger Might House, where the White Tiger clan was gathering at. The successor of the Green Dragon clan, Lin Jin, had even invited nearly half of the successors to a gathering at the Purple Chi Pavilion. Apart from that, there were quite a few other gatherings. Yet, no one had come to invite him, the successor of Tianyun clan. These bunch of... How dare they look down on me? I've joined the clan a few years later than them, and I'm staying in a brothel, but what's the big deal? Shinshin's expression changed again and again while Sun Tiangang, who was at the side, seemed to be vexed. He had known that Shinshin would be unhappy after reading it. "What should we do?" Sun Tiangang asked softly. "We'll wait until the enthronement ceremony is over. This is not the time to be impetuous and let anger rule over our heads." Seeing how stern Shinshin's expression had become, Sun Tiangang was in disbelief. He did not expect Shinshin to be able to bear with it. He didn't seem like the successor who had a high status in Tianyun clan, having sent him flying with just one move. "Junior brother's son, don't forget the purpose of our visit here. The Green Dragon clan, White Tiger clan, Xianwu clan, and the Vermilion Bird clan are the 4 clans that are the main force against the unification of the Wuxing clan. At this point, it won't be good to go against them. Otherwise, it will seem as if the Tianyun clan is trying to please the Wuxing clan. You're still too young and impulsive." After saying this, Shinshin suavely turned around and entered the room. Sun Tiangang was dumbfounded, thinking, what does that have to do with me? I'm not the one who's embarrassed. That night, the owners of 17 major brothels, other than the Floral Moon House, gathered together. The news that the successor of the Tianyun clan is staying in Iran has already spread around, with many noblemen asking me about Iran. What do you think about it? Hua Hongyan sat in the leader's seat and spoke in a calm down, sounding exactly like a big boss. The capital was of a limited size, as were the number of customers. The rise of one brothel inevitably meant the decline of the other brothels, which was something they did not want to see. In particular, a rapid rise due to some special factors. For example, the sudden appearance of Gu Qiqing in the Floral Moon House and the fact that a successor had checked into Iran. "We should think of some ways to weaken the impact of this matter," one of the owners said in a low voice. Yes, the successor of the Tianyun clan is indeed not that competent, and his influence isn't great. He wasn't invited to the gathering of the successors in the past 2 days. How about we create some rumors and say that the girls of Iran are plagued with diseases? Hearing this, the cheeks of the owners twitched. Such rumors would do the most damage to a brothel, easily driving people to desperation. There's no need to be so ruthless. Weakening the influence of the successor of the Tianyun clan will naturally weaken the impact of this incident. I think we just have to spread the news around and say that the successor of the Tianyun clan is weak and ranked at the very bottom among the 36 clans, which is why he is not treated very well in the clan. We have to say that he's very poor too, and that the successors of the other clans do not care to be associated with him. That will be enough, as said with a smile. Hearing her words, the people nodded one after another. The last sentence was particularly crucial. Herd mentality was common among humans. If a group of powerful figures alienated a person, others would subconsciously follow suit. The gentries and scions would definitely not patronize Iran once they learned that the successors had alienated the successor of the Tianyun clan. Otherwise, they would seem lowly. Hua Hongyan made up her mind very quickly, declaring, "Yes, let's do that. Send more of our men to spread the word tomorrow." Bright and early the following morning, a group of scions were having breakfast in the Drunken Red House. At the same time, they were also discussing which female successor was prettier. One of them suddenly asked with some curiosity, "I heard that a successor is staying in a brothel named Iran. Have you guys been there before?" "No. Is there such a place?" Seeing that a few people were about to discuss Iran, an errand boy from Drunken Red House interjected, "Sirs, do you know that the successor of Tianyun clan?" Before he finished, a fast stallion suddenly appeared in the distance, the person on the horse holding a list. He exclaimed loudly. The Wuxing clan has ranked the successors of the 36 clans according to their strength. Would you like to take a look? It'll only cost you 1 spirit stone. In a flash, a spirit stone flew from the hand of one of the scions to the man, causing him to hurriedly toss the list in his hand to the few noble scions. They had long forgotten about Iran at this point. The thing that the people in the capital were most curious about was the strength of the successors. Besides, the list was definitely reliable, having been created by the Wuxing clan. Thinking this, the noble scion who received the list quickly opened it, his friends leaning over to look at it. State of Jin's elite list. First place, Chelnia the Wuxing clan and the new king of the state of Jin. Second place, Lin Jin, successor of the Green Dragon clan. Third place, Yi Wuxing, the successor of the White Tiger clan. Fourth place, Chen Shun, successor of the Tianyan clan. Fifth place, Xiao Huang, the successor of Vermilion Bird sect. Looking at the list, the scions were a bit astonished. Most of them had heard of the top 10 successors and weren't too surprised by the list, but where did the successor of the Tianyan clan pop up from? He had even beat the successors of the Vermilion Bird clan and the Xuanwu clan. They hadn't ever heard of him before. At this point, one of them recalled what the errand boy had just said, turning his head to ask, "What did you just say about the successor of the Tianyan clan? Introduce him to me." The errand body was now awkward, stammering, "I wanted to say that. The successor of the Tianyan clan is actually very impressive." Successor? Are you really fourth in strength? Inside the Iran Inn, and Jionyang covered her small mouth with disbelief all over her face. The successor whom she managed to invite by chance was fourth on the list of elites? It was simply a dream. She had never heard of him accomplishing any impressive feat. There was no need to mention the new king, since he was a terrifying existence that could step into the Golden Core stage at any time. Lin Jin, the successor of the Green Dragon clan, had once escaped from the hands of an expert at the Golden Core stage and was famous in the state of Jin. On the other hand, Yi Wuxing, the successor of the White Tiger clan who had killed the young clan master of the 3rd division of the Demon clan, was also extremely famous. Although the other successors were not as good as those two, they at least had some considerable accomplishments, unlike the successor in front of her. Yet, Chen Chen came in 4th place. 4th place? The Wuxing clan is very unreliable, Chen Chen said with frustration. And Junyang heaved a sigh of relief after hearing his words. It seems that the Wuxing clan has made a mistake. If this successor in front of me is 4th among the elites, I'll kneel down. In fact, it is reasonable to say that I should be the first. Chen Chen murmured seriously. Half a month ago, he succeeded in building his foundation, and since then, his status of cultivation had soared to the middle stage of foundation building. Now, he was almost at the late stage of foundation building. Besides, he had an unprecedented 21st tier Qi training status. His master said that he was an invincible cultivator below the Golden Core realm. I'm obviously in 1st place. Unfortunately, my status of cultivation soared too quickly, and I couldn't spread the word about it in time. I really envy those who cultivate slowly. They can slowly pretend to be impressive, but I can't. I cultivate too quickly. No one noticed me, and I was already ahead. Chen Chen sighed. On the other hand, Jionyang really treated Chen Chen as a lunatic and left in a wretched state, while the girls in Iran were huge fans of his bragging as they seemed to be intoxicated. At this time, countless people in the capital were looking at the so-called State of Jin Elites ranking list, and Chen Chen's name, as the successor of the Tianyan clan, was also widely circulated. In the drunken red house, Hua Hongyan looked at the list with a gloomy expression. The 4th elite of the state of Jin was completely different from an ordinary successor. Now, an elite like him actually stayed in a brothel. How great of an honor must that be? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but be jealous of the Iran Inn, regretting her decision not to offer 500 spirit stones to take the successor of the Tianyan clan home. No, we still have to find a way. This will not work. On the other hand, inside the Floral Moon House, Gu Qingqing looked at the elite's ranking list lazily, wondering which one she should make his prey. However, when she saw the 4th name, she sat up violently. That shameless freeloader is actually in 4th place. How is that possible? Could it be that the Wuxing clan is out of their mind? However, after thinking about it again, Gu Qingqing changed her mind. The Wuxing clan was the dominant force of the state of Jin. Hence, if there was something wrong with her head, the Wuxing clan would not be affected either. Could it be that the very unreliable-looking successor of the Tianyun clan is actually that competent? If it's true, we'll have to find the stupid authors and fabricate some stories to spread them around. As for whether or not the successor of Tianyun clan agreed, she couldn't be bothered. It's that idiot's fault for teasing me. The successors of the other clans had also seen the ranking. Some didn't care, but some had doubts. Some were furious too. For example, Xin Hong, the successor of Xuanwu clan, who was at the peak of foundation establishment. Among the elites of the state of Jin, he was the strongest in defense. Usually, he did not even find Lin Jin and Yi Wuxing impressive. This time, he was ranked 6th. It was a huge insult. Xinshin of Tianyun clan? Did the Wuxing clan just pull out such a random person to disgust me? Let's go. I'd like to see how strong this elite in 4th place really is. Xian Hong smashed the list and hollered angrily. Xiaohu of the Vermilion Bird clan was fine. After all, it had been established a long time ago, but who was Qinshin? He had never heard of him before. Cultivation was a long process, and the ones who were competent would definitely stand out. Could it be that Qinshin has suddenly attained foundation establishment? You must be kidding. Just as he was about to go outside, the 2 disciples accompanying him hurriedly pulled him back from behind. Successor, don't be impulsive. This is the Wuxing clan's conspiracy. They just want to worsen the conflict between the 35 clans using this list. Don't be fooled. Yes, the Wuxing clan created this list to cause further conflict. There are many unreasonable points in it. You must not take it seriously. Hearing the words of the accompanying disciple, Xin Hong closed his eyes, the veins on his face bulging. He finally suppressed his anger. In the blink of an eye, another day had passed. It was the day of the enthronement ceremony for the new king, which had an extraordinary significance for the entire state of Jin. It was quite in the entire capital where countless armored soldiers were patrolling the city to prevent chaos. At the altar outside the royal palace, the civil and military officials had already gathered, already and waiting for the enthronement ceremony to begin. At this very moment, a high-pitched voice spread throughout the entire royal palace. The 36 clans are the foundation of the state of Jin. According to the custom, the enthronement of the new king must be approved by the 36 clans. So I now invite the successors of the 36 clans to represent their clan masters on stage. As soon as he said those words, 35 people stepped on the stage and onto the platform in the middle. It was just a process, and the successors of the 35 clans definitely wouldn't step forth and say that they didn't approve of it. Qinshin stood in the middle of the crowd with a solemn expression. He felt that a lot of people were sizing him up, including the ministers and military personnel. There was no shortage of golden core powerhouses among them. After taking a deep breath, Qinshin looked ahead while secretly hiding all the ethereality in his body. He had an innate spirit body, and trouble would ensue if anyone saw through him. System, I ask you, where is the strongest person within a 30-meter radius? It was rare for the successors of the 35 clans to gather, and the others were far away too. Hence, Qinshin had a rare opportunity to ask such a question. Putting aside the equipment, you are the strongest, host. Qinshin was slightly stunned to hear those words. What does this mean? Doesn't it mean that my equipment can't make the cut? Actually, it made sense too. His storage ring was full of treasures, and there was barely any equipment. However, he was wearing an inner armor that his master had gifted to him, though compared to Yi Wuxing, who was fully shrouded in armor, they were worlds apart. Seems like I have to organize the equipment when I have the time to. Otherwise, others are going to catch up to me in terms of strength. Qinshin felt a sense of pressure, which was rare. Fortunately, the capital of the country was abundant in resources, and since there were 28 auctions, it should not be difficult for him to get some impressive equipment. As for the spirit stones, he wasn't bothered at all. When he slayed a dragon previously, he brought back a few storage rings that contained tens of thousands of spirit stones, which was as much as the entire fortune of several golden core powerhouses. If nothing worked, he could just take out some treasures and sell them for hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. Hence, he no longer had a concept of spirit stones. When Qinshin was thinking about those nonsensical things, the corners of Chong Ye's lips suddenly curled up when he was on the high platform. He said calmly, "Are you willing to submit to the Wuxing clan and help us unify the 36 sects?" As soon as he said those words, the entire altar fell silent. Some standard successors even couldn't help but shiver. It's coming. Is the Wuxing clan trying to figure out what to do? They're so straightforward. If they said that they didn't want to, would they be able to return to the clan safely? The silence lasted for several minutes, and Chun Chun could even hear the heartbeats of some of the successors around him. Chong Yi, who was on the stage, was looking at everyone and observing the changes in their expressions. Practicing the Supreme Qing Dao required one to abstain from romance, but it was also the technique that was the most sensitive to emotions. Hence, he could tell at a glance which successors were determined to rebel and which ones were uncertain. After a long time, a slightly thin figure stood up. He said in a firm tone, "King, it's better not to joke about some things." "Oh, Brother Lin, do you think I'm joking?" Chongyi said indifferently. "Are you not?" Before the thin figure answered, Yi Wuxing stood up and asked again rhetorically. When the two of them stood together, their auras fused with that of the high and mighty new king of the state of Jin. All of a sudden, they actually formed a formidable storm on the altar. The other successors were horrified to see this. The difference between the strength of the top 3 elites of the state of Jin and theirs was too drastic. They were not even on the same level. A few moments later, the storm suddenly ceased. Chongyi turned around and said calmly, "Since the two of you think I'm joking, let's take it as a joke. However, I'm here to announce another important matter that is not a joke. The ranking of the 36 clans of the state of Jin has been fixed for hundreds of years, but the original ranking seems to be somewhat inappropriate now. Hence, the Wuxing clan and the royal family have jointly decided to hold another ranking battle in 3 days. The clan masters are the pillars of the nation and cannot be hurt at all. Hence, the 36 clans will be ranked according to the strength of the successors. Apart from the 36 clans, another 18 smaller clans will be taking part too. Everyone, please be careful not to get into any slip-ups and lose your status as one of the 36 clans." After saying that, Chongyi flew away from the altar and floated away. The group of successors below were looking at each other with different expressions. The status of the 36 clans was not only related to the affiliation of the clans, but also their share of the only medium-grade spirit stone mine in the state of Jin. Besides, medium-grade spirit stones were necessary for cultivation after the Golden Core stage. If they lost a share of the mine, the Golden Core powerhouses would have a hard time cultivating in the clan. Upon thinking about that, many standard successors could not help but break a sweat. It was the end of the enthronement ceremony. However, the successors had been feeling distraught and out of their element during the journey back. Many of them took out their communication tokens to inform their clans of the situation. In the afternoon, the successors of the 18 small clans who were invited to participate in the ranking battle had entered the city. As soon as the successors stepped into the boundaries of the capital, they were surrounded by a group of pimps. Soon after, they were invited to stay in inns at a high price. Although the successors of the smaller clans were not as good as the successors of the 36 clans, they at least had some fame and could thus downplay the influence of the Iran Inn. Apart from that, there were also changes to the state of Jin Elite's ranking due to the successors' entry to the city. TSK, TISK, 10 successors who are at the peak of Foundation Establishment, 8 who are at the late stage of Foundation Establishment, and 3 who have surpassed me. Chen looked at the new elites ranking with some astonishment on his face. How is this possible? There is no way the resources of a small clan could produce so many young experts. Elder Zhao was full of disbelief. In his opinion, apart from the 36 clans of the state of Jin, the others were incompetent. It was due to the fact that those clans did not have immortal lands that were rich in ethereality that they could not compare with the 36 clans. Moreover, the disciples of those small clans were all candidates who did not get selected by the 36 clans. How did they produce 10 young experts who were at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm, which was even more than what the 36 clans could produce? Chen put away the list and laughed. The Wuxing clan probably groomed them. It seems that the Wuxing clan's agenda is very obvious. They want to use these smaller clans to kick those who are unwilling to submit out of the top 36 clans. If these 18 clans are under the control of the Wuxing clan, then the Wuxing clan can basically kick away whoever they want. Elder Zhao's expression grew incredibly grave when he heard Chen's explanation. Successor, be careful. You mustn't fail. Out of his understanding of Chen, he was expecting to hear Chen's arrogant reply after speaking. For some reason, listening to Chen's bragging at times like this would give him some confidence. However, Chen nodded solemnly and answered back, Elder Zhao, you're right. Elder Zhao was speechless. According to past practice, shouldn't he respond with don't worry, those opponents are not that terrifying? Elder Zhao, there will be a golden silk garment auctioned at the treasure auction house tonight. The starting price is 4,000 spirit stones, and it's said to be able to resist 50% of ethereality below the golden core realm. In order to ensure that we leave no stones unturned, help me buy it at the auction. Shinshin spoke in a serious manner, but Elder Zhao was dumbfounded. The starting price of 4,000 spirit stones meant that the final transaction price would probably reach nearly 10,000 spirit stones. Under normal circumstances, such equipment would definitely not be worth so many spirit stones. However, during such a critical moment, every single bit of strength was crucial, and hence, it would not be surprising for the sale price to reach that high. However, such a hefty price tag was a huge headache for Elder Zhao to deal with. At the thought of it, Elder Zhao smiled awkwardly and said, "As a Supreme Elder, how can I go and bid with a group of juniors? That's too humiliating. It's better to leave such things to Zhang Ji or Tian Gang. I've heard that quite a few Golden Core powerhouses would be attending. I refuse to go." As soon as he said those words, a storage ring landed in his hands. At this point, Shinshin was no longer in the mood to joke with Elder Zhao. He then said calmly, "There are 50,000 spirit stones inside. Apart from the golden silk robe, buy me those gale boots as well as the 10,000 tribulation gloves." Whoosh! Elder Zhao disappeared into thin air in the blink of an eye. A moment later, at the auction house, Elder Zhao leaned back in his seat like a big boss. 10,000 tribulation gloves going at 8,000 spirit stones. Any higher bids? On the auction stage, the auctioneer pointed to a pair of exquisite gloves and declared. Seeing this, Elder Zhao stretched out his finger. He then said indifferently, "I'm offering 10,000 spirit stones." Hearing his offer, many people in the crowd looked at him with incredible astonishment. The old man who appeared from nowhere had already bought several treasures in one night. Where on earth did he get so many spirit stones? The crowd wondered. Elder Jiang of the Yushui clan, who was sitting to the side, twitched his eyelids when he heard the bid. He then said coldly, "I know how miserly you are, you shameless old thing. Back then, you gave me a fake golden hairpin. Why are you so generous today?" Looking like he had been maligned, Elder Zhao answered bitterly, "Junior sister Jiang, you've mistaken me. How could I mess up at such a critical juncture? I'll do whatever it takes, even if I have to go bankrupt. As if I believe you. You're a horrible old man. These spirit stones are considered nothing to the clan. Junior sister Jiang, you've underestimated me," Elder Zhao vehemently explained. Late at night, the auction was over. With excitement written all over his face, Elder Zhao handed over the golden silk robe, the gale boots, and the 10,000 tribulation gloves to Shinshin. There was nothing better than acting like a wealthy person using someone else's money. It was even more so for a stingy person like him. The golden silk robe is made using golden silkworms from the snowy regions. It's durable and has a high resistance to ethereality. Gale boots are made of the feathers of a rare demon known as the Gale Bird. Wear it to enhance the speed of flight by 50%. 10,000 tribulation gloves, made from the fur of a nascent soul flood dragon. Not only is it exceptionally durable, it can also increase the efficiency of ethereality absorption and output by 50%. After putting on the 3 pieces of equipment, Shinshin immediately felt different, as if his physique had been greatly enhanced compared to before. System, who is the richest within a 30-meter radius? Host, it's you, without a doubt. Hearing this answer, Shinshin smiled with satisfaction. On the other hand, Elder Zhao's eyes were full of envy. There were probably less than 3 Foundation establishment cultivators in the state of Jin who could wear a full suit of equipment worth tens of thousands of spirit stones. Where did this kid get so many spirit stones? The clan master couldn't have given so many either. By the way, Elder Zhao, I just looked at the auction list of several auctions. There are similar treasures. Give me another set tomorrow. Otherwise, if I were to wear the same thing every day, others might think that I didn't shower. As Shinshin spoke, he tossed another storage bag at Elder Zhao. Elder Zhao grabbed the storage bag and seemed incredibly astonished. What did he just say? He wants to buy another set of such equipment just because he's afraid that others might think he didn't shower. Cultivators have long been unmarred. Why would we have to shower? Besides, how can equipment of such a level get stained with dirt? After casually glancing at the storage bag, Elder Zhao couldn't help but inhale sharply. This time, the bag was not filled with spirit stones but a 10,000-year-old psychic herb, which would directly increase one's status of cultivation. To Golden Core powerhouses, they were several times better than middle-grade spirit stones. Also, the value of the item was extremely high, and they usually sold for 50,000 spirit stones and above. In any case, he could never afford it and had only ever heard about it by word. Qinshan, you. Elder Zhao was momentarily speechless. How could he sell such treasures casually? It's just some herbs that aren't worth mentioning. I thought about it, and I've decided that it won't be worth it to use spirit stones. After all, this capital is facing inflation. It's more worth it if you sell these items and exchange them for spirit stones. Elder Zhao, I'll have to trouble you. After he spoke, Qinshan sized up his new equipment before walking towards the guest room. Elder Zhao was left standing, dumbfounded, and doubting his life. Qinshan's words echoed in his mind. Just some herb. On the following day, the rules for the ranking battle were released. It was a simple and straightforward challenge. If one wanted to take the place of one of the 36 clans, they would have to challenge the successor of that clan. If they won, they would be able to replace that clan. A clan could only be challenged once every half a day, and likewise, each clan could only challenge another clan once. The ranking battle would last for 3 days, after which the top 36 would become the new 36 clans of the state of Jin. After the rules were released, the successors of the clans became increasingly nervous. There was too much the clans could do with the rules, and hence, strength and competency wouldn't guarantee them a spot. At this moment, a woman dressed in fire-red clothes stood still silently in front of the Iran Inn. She looked like a burning flame, and no one dared to stare at her even once. I'm Xiao Huang of the Vermilion Bird Clan, and I'd like to see the successor of the Tianyun clan. Hearing this voice, a group of girls from the Iran Inn popped their heads out. How rare was it for the strongest female successor of the state of Jin to show up at their door? However, when they thought of the fact that the 4th elite of the state of Jin had checked into their brothel, it didn't seem that rare. Actually, to be precise, the successor who lived in their brothel was now the 7th elite, but regardless of their rank, they were all impressive. What do you want to see me for? Qinshan walked to the door, the treasures on his body shining bright like a sun. When he stood in front of Xiao Huang, the light on his body seemed to have eclipsed the red light from Xiao Huang's body. When Xiao Huang saw Qinshan, she couldn't help but squint her narrow eyes due to the strong glare. Junior Brother Qin, the ranking battle this time is just one of the Wuxin clan's conspiracies. We have to unite in order to pull through this ordeal. Junior brother, don't you agree? Yes, Qinshan said faintly. Xiao Huang smiled after hearing his words and continued. So I would like to ask Junior Brother Qin to move to the Purple Chi Pavilion where we can discuss the important matters together. Hearing this, Qinshan raised his eyebrows. The other successors had finally thought of it. They had even sent the best successor, Xiao Huang, to invite him to the Purple Chi Pavilion. Hearing this, Qinshan became filled with appreciation. In such a case, he had no reason to refuse. He knew very well how important this trip to the capital was, and it was not the time to be spontaneous. Having been reminded of that, Qinshan nodded a little and answered, Senior sister, wait a moment. I'll go get changed and be right back. After he spoke, Qinshan returned to Iran Inn, and by the time he returned outside, the light of treasures had already vanished. However, Xiao Huang was even more bewildered. The value of the treasures that Qinshan was wearing now is even higher than his previous set. What is the matter with this successor of the Tianyun clan? Is he that rich? After getting a grip on her emotions, Xiao Huang gestured for him to follow her, and then led the way in front. At her level, of course she wouldn't be traveling in a carriage, and flying was prohibited in the capital too. Hence, she chose to walk. However, as soon as she took a step, she covered a distance of dozens of meters. Qinshan saw this and followed behind her with a smile. Junior Brother Qin, how long have you been cultivating for? Xiao Huang asked, seeing that Qinshan was lagging far behind her. I don't remember. Qinshan replied. He could not tell her that he had only been cultivating for 2 months. No one would believe him if he said that. Oh, Junior Brother Qin, you don't trust me. The two chatted along the way, and before they knew it, they had arrived in front of a giant restaurant. It was the Purple Chi Pavilion. It was the largest restaurant in the capital of the nation. It was as high as 10 floors, and the height of the building was second only to the royal palace. Rumor had it that they had the support of a certain prince of the royal family. Needless to say, the interior was lavishly decorated, and there were even many spiritual objects and ingredients that were mixed with several heavenly treasures. In Qinshan's opinion, the standard of the ingredients within the building had reached the level that he was at before he entered the Tianyun clan. It was terrifying. It was also the place where Lin Jin, the successor of the Green Dragon clan, stayed. When he entered the Purple Chi Pavilion, Qinshan felt numerous people staring at him, one of which was extremely sharp and shrewd. He was a domineering and muscular man who was also big and at least 2 meters tall. Xian Hong, The successor of the Xuanwu clan? What are you ogling at? Have you never seen a hunk before? Qinshan muttered in his heart before scanning the crowd and taking a seat beside Yulanqing. There were 16 people present, the weakest of whom were at the late stage of foundation building. Qinshan, Yulanqing, and Yi Wuxian were the only successors from the 18 clans of the north who were present. While sitting in the room, Xiao Huang said to a thin young man who was far away from the group, "Senior brother Lin Jin, I've invited senior brother Qinshan over." Lin Jin took a glance at the group before nodding as his expression gradually became grave. "Since everyone is here, I'll get straight to the point. Everyone, we are all leaders of the 36 clans, and I guess no one is willing to let their clan be labeled as part of the Wuxing clan, right?" "Of course not," many successors answered. Those who were present were all future clan masters, and so no one was willing to become an elder of the Wuxing clan. "Since we have the same goal, the problem is simple." Lin Jin smiled and began to come up with a strategy. He had no choice but to admit that he had a natural sophisticated aura and sounded extremely influential. Soon, the successors within the group began to nod one after another. Yulanqing, who was seated beside Qinshan, could not help but whisper to him, "Senior brother Qin, you have to save our Yushui clan." Upon hearing this, Qinshan drank a cup of tea and laughed. "How do I save you? Do what Lin Jin said?" Yulanqing nodded repeatedly. Her nervousness and tension in the past few days had completely exposed her nature, and she could no longer act like a cold and aloof person. In fact, the strategy Lin Jin had formulated was very simple, which was to work around the rules and support each other. For example, the Tianyun clan and the Yushui clan could cooperate. If the Yushui clan was challenged and they lost, they would be avenged by the Tianyun clan, after which the Yushui clan would challenge the Tianyun clan. The Tianyun clan would then simply admit defeat, allowing the Yushui clan to gain a place. Being supported came with benefits too. If the Tianyun clan experienced a great battle and was unable to continue fighting, the Yushui clan would challenge the Tianyun clan instead and let the other clans be unable to take advantage, so as to buy time for the Tianyun clan to recuperate. In short, the more people who joined the team, the more room they had to work around the rules. By then, they would be able to achieve a win-win situation. Yes, yes, yes. Senior brother Qin, beat up whoever challenges the Yushui clan. Yulanqing waved her small fist nervously. It could not be helped that the weak cultivators would be defected to the Wuxing clan. The stronger cultivators had their own strength as a guarantee, and the ones who were most likely to be defeated were those who were at the late stages of foundation building. Yulanqing felt that if she didn't do something, the Yushui clan would probably be kicked out of the 36 clans. Looking at Yulanqing's appearance, Qinshan couldn't help but grow amused. As such, he decided to tease her. "Actually, I think it's good for the Yushui clan to break away from the 36 clans, and then join our Tianyun clan, so that my master and your master can be together rightfully. What's the harm?" Hearing these words, Yulanqing's face turned sullen, and her eyes full of pity. "They are lovers who will finally get to be together, but I'll definitely be beaten to death. Senior brother Qin, you can't leave me in the lurch. I'm willing to slog my guts out to repay you, senior brother." As the two chatted, the sounds of footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Immediately afterward, a group of people went up the stairs and appeared in front of the crowd. Seeing this group of people, Lin Jin's expression changed slightly. Xiao Huang also could not help but gain a scornful gaze. They were none other than the successors of the 18 clans, of which 10 were at the peak of foundation building while 8 were at the late stages of foundation building. The leader of the group was Qi Bufan, the successor of the Luoyu clan who had surpassed Yi Wuxing on the elite ranking for 3rd place. "Oh, senior brother Lin, what a coincidence. Are you all gathering here to discuss how to deal with us?" Qi Bufan was dressed in white and waving a paper fan in his hand with a look of contempt on his handsome face. Lin Jin kept a straight face as he answered coldly, "Don't read too much into things, and don't call me senior brother. Disciples of small clans outside the top 36 clans are not qualified to do that." Hearing these words, the expressions on the faces of the 18 successors changed drastically. Qinshan saw this and marveled in his heart. Lin Jin is really impressive at garnering haters for himself. Qi Bufan's expression twisted slightly as he sneered, 36 clans? Sounds mighty. You people are taking up so many resources, only to groom a bunch of garbage. Huh. There are 16 of you, but only 6 are at the peak of foundation building. You guys should have been replaced sooner. Lin Jin, perhaps in 2 days, I'll be saying to you, The same thing that you just said to me. Chi Bufan offended the others very easily. As soon as he said the word garbage, a powerful spiritual pressure burst out from each of the successors, besides Chen Chen. The tallest one, Xian Hong, even took a step forward and shattered the ground. Chi Bufan, what did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. Oh, a foolish person with brawn but no brains is also worthy of being called a successor. What a joke. Chi Bufan sneered as a person got up behind him. The person's body was filled with a dense earthly ethereality, which surprisingly restrained Xian Hong's water ethereality. Their spiritual pressure collided, and it didn't take long for Xian Hong to be defeated. Seeing this scene, the eyes of the successors of the 36 clans became filled with shock. Next, a terrifying thought appeared in their minds. Could it be that the techniques practiced by the successors of the 18 small clans are all specifically restraining them? At that thought, Yihua, who was full of fire ethereality, stepped forward. As expected, another woman covered in frost stepped out, and her chilly aura caused the temperature across the entire floor to plunge by 7 or 8 degrees, thus suppressing her. It's the long-lost mysterious frost technique. Yihua couldn't help but take 2 steps backward with a stunned expression. Seeing this expression on his face, Chi Bufan burst into laughter. Pointing at the 16 successors, he yelled coldly, "All of you, watch out. Just you wait and see, in 2 days' time, you will know how ridiculous you guys are by calling yourself successors." Hearing this, many successors including Lin Jin, all grew somber expressions on their faces. How long had the Wuxing clan been planning this matter? It is amazing that they have cultivated so many elites that specialize in restraining the clan's techniques. Could the plan that they had formulated for years fall through just because we sat together to discuss? Thinking of this, they all felt somber. Yi Wuxian was the only one with an unclear expression due to the fact that he was wearing a full suit of armor. On the other hand, the heartless Chen Chen also maintained a look of composure. He could sense an existence that restrained thunder techniques. However, the person dared not make eye contact with him. It could not be helped since the person's cultivation was only at the late stage of foundation building and his strength was a notch lower than Chen Chen. Besides, thunder techniques did not belong to the 5 elements and could not be restrained completely. Hence, the cultivator did not dare to challenge him as Chen Chen would probably slap him to death. "Ah, my Tianyun clan is only ranked in 13th place. We don't deserve to let the Wuxing clan help nurture an elite that's at the peak of foundation building." Chen Chen was a little depressed as the Tianyun clan was clearly being looked down upon. On the other hand, Yulanxin, who was at the side, was clenching her fists tightly with bloodshot eyes. On the other side of the room, a late-stage foundation establishment earth cultivator stared her down, constantly licking his tongue provocatively. Everyone has a rival. That's great. Chen sat down silently and began to eat. Seeing this, Lin Jin looked at Chi Bufan and said coldly, "You can try when the time comes." After he spoke, he also sat down. Upon sight of this, everyone else sat down, ignoring each other. The 18 people led by Chi Bufan sat on the other side of the room, drinking, chatting, and laughing unrestrainedly. Thus, a strange scene happened on the top floor of the Purple Chi Pavilion. The area was split into 2 sides, with the stairway as the dividing line. The people on the left were chatting and laughing merrily. On the other hand, those on the right were in a tense and somber ambience. Back at the Iran residence, Chen Chen placed all the random things that he had picked up along the way in his storage ring. He seemed to remember that when he tracked 100 items, the system had an achievement that would reward him with a chance to track within a range of 10 kilometers. Hence, he used the system whenever he could, as it could possibly give him a special tracking opportunity after he tracked 1,000 or 10,000 items. By missing a wide-range tracking opportunity, he would become insecure. A few girls in the Iran were entertaining and receiving guests enthusiastically. Ever since he arrived, the business in the Iran had been improving, and even in Jeonyang started smiling, which was rare of her. On the other hand, Zhang Ji huddled up in a corner to read a book while grinning elatedly. "What are you reading? Show it to me." Chen Chen curiously leaned over. It was a storybook containing a tragic story about a pair of lovers who ended up finding out that they were siblings. The main characters of the story were Gu Qingqing and Chi Bufan. "What's this nonsense?" Chen Chen grabbed the book and carefully flipped through it. To his surprise, the name of the male protagonist of the touching but corny story had obviously been deliberately edited. He could vaguely see that it was his name before the edits were made. The editor is so careless. "Only half of my name is covered. What's this?" Hearing this, Zhang Ji laughed as he responded, "Big brother, I take you to be the protagonist. It's quite interesting. Where did you get this lousy book from?" Qinshin asked, looking displeased. "All the girls here have a copy." Hearing Zhang Ji's answer, Qinshin casually asked for a copy, only to find that it was exactly the same as Zhang Ji's copy. The name of the male protagonist was changed from Qinshin to Qi Bufan, but the editing was careless, making it obvious that it used to be Qinshin's name. "They're using me for fame. Are they sponging off me?" Qinshin asked with a look of puzzlement. Moments later, Jionyang, who was sitting at the side of the room, blurted out awkwardly, "This book was published by the Crimson Bookstore in the capital. The girls in the capital love reading their books. This is the most popular book now. Who wrote this?" Qinshin asked. "I don't know, but 7 or 8 books with Gu Qiqing as the female lead have already been published in the nation. The male protagonist of each book is a popular figure." After hearing in Jionyang's words, Qinshin was already certain of the culprit's identity. He didn't expect Gu Qiqing to be a marketing expert. It was no wonder that she could be the greatest beauty of the capital. Gu Qiqing is a powerful figure. If I were half as good as her, the Iranin wouldn't be in this miserable state. When mentioning Gu Qiqing, a glimmer of admiration appeared in Jionyang's eyes. It couldn't be helped. The floral moon house and the Iranin were simply worlds apart, and she could only admire them without any jealousy. As soon as she finished speaking, a commotion broke out in the Iranin once again. "Look, that's Gu Qiqing." The crowd looked in the direction of the sounds, only to see a couple strutting on the street in front of the Iranin. The man was dressed in white and shaking a paper fan in his hand suavely. He was none other than Qi Bufan, whom Qinshin had met in the Purple Qi Pavilion previously. However, Qi Bufan now looked like a mild-mannered gentleman, unlike his hysterical self previously. The woman was obviously Gu Qiqing, who was grinning widely like a beautiful woman. The two of them chatted and strolled along like lovers. "I didn't expect to pass by the Iranin again," Gu Qiqing murmured with a melancholic expression. "What? Is there something special about this place?" "Of course, this is the place where the successor of the Tianyun clan is staying at. He is the first successor who is willing to stay in a brothel. Qiqing admires him greatly too." Hearing Gu Qingqing's words, a hint of jealousy appeared in Qi Bufan's eyes. He then asked calmly, "How's the successor of the Tianyun clan like compared to me?" "He's naturally inferior to you, successor." "Successor, you're ranked 3rd among the elites at such a young age, and you're superior to Yi Wuxing in terms of strength. In terms of magnanimity, you are also far better than the successor of the Tianyun clan." The jealousy in Qi Bufan's eyes instantly disappeared and was replaced by excitement. However, his excitement was fleeting. "Actually, Lin Jin from the Green Dragon clan might not be my opponent either. Maybe you think I'm bragging, but you'll find out the truth in a couple of days." "I believe you, of course. You're not the type to brag." Qinshin, who was in Iranin, heard everything clearly. He knew that Gu Qiqing was obviously passing by the Iranin on purpose. She purely wanted to come over and anger him. Qinshin gave hats off to her. "Just take your shower of compliments and leave. Must you come here to beat me up? How can there be such a petty person in this world? Not only is this woman trying to anger me, she even used a book for clout, and made use of me for fame. TSK, TSK, TSK. Since when have I ever been at such a disadvantage?" And Jionyang, who was at the side, saw Qinshin's expression change several times, and hurriedly began to comfort him. As someone with a status of cultivation, she certainly heard the conversation outside. "Successor, Gu Qiqing is known for being narrow-minded. Don't bother getting upset because of her. She's just a woman." At this point, Jionyang blushed a little as she said softly, "Actually, I think Qi Bufan is inferior to you in terms of magnanimity. Qi Bufan cannot even compare to you. Besides, successor, you're very interesting and you seem different from the others. You've got good taste." Qinshin said indifferently. He then changed his tone. "Jionyang, do you want to revamp the Iranin? I can give you a hand." "Huh? Successor, do you know how to run a business too?" And Jionyang asked with extreme astonishment. Qinshin stared at Gu Qingqing's back in the distance and chuckled. "Of course I do. Gu Qingqing's tricks are nothing to me." And Jionyang remained silent, assuming that Qinshin was bragging. After all, Qinshin had been bragging frequently throughout his stay in the Iranin, to the extent that the girls who hadn't seen much of the world began to admire him greatly. However, even if she knew Qinshin was bragging, she had to play along and agree. After all, he had great high status. "Please give me your guidance, successor." After a moment of silence, Jionyang answered respectfully. Hearing that, Chinchin hesitated for a moment before saying, I won't do anything to help people for no reason, so give me 50% of the equity of the Iran Inn, and I will revamp it for you. Huh? And Jeonyang was a bit confused. It seems that it is really the successor. However, given the Iran Inn's situation, 50% of the equity was not worth much. Perhaps it wasn't even worth 300 spirit stones. Besides, she didn't know much about running a business. The successor in front of her was probably better at bragging than she was. Thinking of this, and Jeonyang gritted her teeth and said, Successor, if that's what you want, do anything you wish with the Iran Inn. Anyway, ever since I invited you here, I no longer had a way out. Hearing this, Chinchin smiled and replied, Great, I'll teach you a lesson first. Chen Shun had actually studied business management in his previous life, and his business ideas were definitely far ahead of this era. If the social environment within the Sichuan County was not so terrible that everything had to be settled with a fight, he would have long become the richest man within the county. The capital was different as there were stable business rules. Although there were also many forces who manipulated things in the dark, those who were truly capable would definitely have the opportunity to make their mark. After contemplating for a long time, Chen Qin said solemnly, In order to run a high-end business, you have to understand what the mainstream demand of this world is. If it's literature, the girls in your inn have to learn to become scholarly and refined. If it's martial arts, then the girls under you will have to be valiant. In our world, cultivating immortality is the noblest practice that everyone yearns. Hearing Chen Qin's lesson, and Jeonyang covered her mouth in surprise and answered, Do I have to let the girls cultivate immortality? You're reading too much into things. That would cost too much money. However, you can make them pretend like they are cultivating immortality. Next, I'm going to talk to you about building personas. Half an hour later, Chen Qin helped Zhao Shaya to the bed. At this point, and Jeonyang felt as if she had been nourished well as her face was flushed and confusion in her eyes, coupled with incredible admiration. She was close to an epiphany. Impressive. This successor's thoughts are out of this world. She could guarantee that if the successor of the Tianyun clan concentrated on running a brothel, all the other brothels in the capital would have to close down. In particular, he had some ideas. For example, he suggested establishing an illegitimate clan outside the city and making the girls of the Iran in the saintesses of the clan. What a bold idea. The girls would have to be renamed with the prefix saintess before their names, and they had to maintain a calm, cool, and aloof image. A girl named Xiao Hong would have to be renamed Red Lotus Saintess, and she would have to be domineering, unreasonable, and hot-tempered. Chen Qin called it the creation of a persona. You'd better renovate the rooms in the Iran Inn and make them seem ethereal. Of course, this is just the beginning. After creating a pleasant environment, you must also learn to market your inn. The fastest and most effective marketing method is to hype it up by creating a major incident and then put the Iran Inn in the spotlight. Gu Qingqing's method is too slow and fake. It was afternoon. In the Iran Inn, Yulan Xin looked at Chen Shan with a heartbroken expression, her eyes full of distraught. Senior brother Chen, you actually made me do such a thing. You're such a letdown. What do you mean? I'm not making you sell anything. I'm just asking you to teach these girls how to be more pretentious. Chen Xin said expressionlessly. How am I pretentious? I'm very cold and aloof by nature. Yulan Xin said, blushing a little. She couldn't help it because she had been too emotionally stressed lately. In the end, Chen Xin saw through her. Didn't you promise that you'd do anything for me? Why? Are you going back on your word now? Chen Xin said coldly, as if he was threatening not to protect her if she wouldn't help him. Seeing this, Yulanqin had no choice but to agree with him and smile helplessly. Hence, that afternoon, the Iran Inn was in quite a ruckus. There was renovation work going on inside the inn and outside. There was a bunch of girls who were attending lessons and being taught methods to brainwash and deceive themselves. Seeing this scene, Chinchin was quite heartened. He couldn't stay in the capital for too long and hence, he didn't have much time to manage the Iran Inn. However, with his capabilities, he would easily be able to kill off Gu Qingqing's business. By then, he would also get to earn some spirit stones, which would be wonderful. When he returned to the capital again, he would be a person with a strong foothold in the industry. On the following morning, in the Floral Moon House, Gu Qingqing had just woken up, and as soon as she walked out of the room, a staff member walked up to her and said softly, "Miss, there was quite a commotion in the Iran Inn yesterday. Not only was there a quick renovation, they even bought some spiritual objects with a large sum of money." Hearing these words, Gu Qingqing's eyes immediately became filled with astonishment. Is the successor who was checked into the Iran in for a period of time finally going to take action? In fact, it would be strange if he didn't do anything. The Iranin had painstakingly gained some popularity. If they didn't make any improvements, it would be a waste of a wonderful opportunity. Let them be. Qi Bufan has checked into the Floral Moon House, and a few other famous successors have also checked into other brothels. The Iranin has already lost their best opportunity. No matter what they do now, it's all too late. Gu Qiqing yawned as she spoke calmly. She had gone to the successor of the Tianyun clan and take her revenge the previous day. Hence, she was in a good mood and had had a good night's sleep last night. Miss, I got some insider news from some sources that the changes in the Iranin yesterday were led by the successor of the Tianyun clan. The staff member spoke carefully with a look of dismay. The successor of the Tianyun clan seems to be afraid that others would act more shameless than him. Forget it if he's staying in a brothel. He even got involved in the business management. Is that the way successors should behave? Oh, that's interesting. Does the successor of the Tianyun clan know how to manage a business too? Gu Qiqing laughed disdainfully. She let out the contempt she had towards a rookie of the industry as a veteran. He was probably mad about what you did yesterday and wants to develop the Iranin to compete with you. The staff member muttered softly. Apart from that, he couldn't think of any other reason that the successor would get involved with the matters of the brothel. Haha. Hearing this, Gu Qiqing couldn't help but laugh out loud, and she only stopped when she broke into hysterics. Don't tease me, I can't match him in terms of cultivation, but in terms of business, Tinshin Chins would not be able to match me. I led the Floral Moon House to beat all other businesses in the industry, and now, we've risen to the second in the nation. Him trying to compete with me is as amusing as me fighting him in the ring. The staff member felt that she made sense. Why would Gu Qingqing fight with the successor of the Tianyun clan? It was obviously impossible, unless she was courting death. It was the same for business management. The successor of the Tianyun clan wouldn't possibly bring death upon himself and the Iranin. Okay, I'll dismiss myself then. The staff member bowed and retreated. Just as he was getting ready to leave, the sounds of loud cheering came from below the Floral Moon House. Bad news. The successor of the Yushui clan and some Red Lotus Saints has gotten into a fight in front of the Iranin over the successor of the Tianyun clan. Hearing this, the entirety of the Floral Moon House fell silent, and immediately afterward, people began yelling. What? Is there such a thing? I want to go and take a look. In just a few moments, there was a huge commotion in the Floral Moon House, and more than half the guests had left. Before Gu Qiqing could even finish her morning stretch, the Floral Moon House was already in chaos. At this moment, there were several girls who subconsciously looked in the direction of the Iranin with immense desire in their eyes. Mississippi. I didn't expect that the successor of the Tianyun clan would be so popular as for two Saints to fight over him. The staff member was extremely envious, and he felt as if Qinshin was a winner in life. What do you know? Gu Qingqing's eyes grew cold as she headed down the stairs immediately and strode quickly towards the Iranin. At this moment, she had a vague feeling in her heart that the dramatic issue about the Saints fighting over the successor was deliberately arranged by someone. If it was so, it would be terrifying. As she walked, her expression became more and more grave, as there were more and more people on the road. Almost every person was running in the same direction. There were even city guards who stood out to maintain order. After a little while, she had finally gotten close to the Iranin. However, she couldn't go any further as the road in front of the Iranin was already crowded with people. Everyone was looking far away in one direction, where there was an old and shabby house that had completely collapsed. There were obvious signs of a battle. I heard the Red Lotus Saints and the Saints of the Yushui clan have fought more than 100 rounds. However, the Red Lotus Saints lost. Is that so? So powerful. Is it really because of the Tianyun clan successor? Gu Qingqing was listening to the people at the side who were actively discussing. Exactly. The Red Lotus Saints insisted on cultivating alone with the successor of the Tianyun clan, but the Saints of the Yushui clan was displeased with that idea, so they got into a fight. So exciting. There's something even more exciting. Rumor has it that the Red Lotus Saintess is cultivating some special technique that requires her to cultivate with another man alone, or else she will slip into obsession and die. She should look for me to join her. I might be old, but I can still fight. I'm willing to go too. Dream on, she's a Saintess. Hearing the sounds of discussion in her ears, Gu Qingqing's face turned incredibly sullen. She was almost certain that someone was behind this. After all, how could there be such a ridiculous saintess? Who could it be? Shinshin, the successor of the Tianyun clan? Impossible. How could that guy have such tactics? However, apart from the successor, she couldn't think of anyone else, since the successor of the Yushui clan was involved too. That shameless guy is probably the only one who could make the saintesses ignore their image and do such a thing. At that thought, Gu Qingxing felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. She couldn't think of such means, and even if she could, she didn't have the resources to carry it out. Atrocious. Stomping her feet furiously, Gu Qingxing returned along her original route. She had just vented her anger yesterday, but he had exacted revenge again, making her feel incredibly frustrated. On the other hand, countless noblemen had already sent their men to enter the Iran Inn to find out how to save the Red Lotus Saintess. They continued repeating that the Saintess was in danger, and as the good youths of the capital, they couldn't leave her in the lurch. On the following day, the customer traffic of Iran Inn was 10 times that of the usual. The clan-like environment in the Iran Inn gave them an incredibly unique experience. There were a total of 5 floors in Iran Inn, and each floor had a different decor. The girls on each floor had different styles too. As their names changed, their value naturally increased 100-fold. In just one day, Iran Inn earned the amount of money that they had managed to earn in the previous years combined. When they were free, many girls would be overjoyed and thank Shinshin profusely. They never thought that they would one day be able to enjoy the treatment that even the best beauty could not enjoy. Late at night, and Jeonyang kowtowed a few times in front of her mother's altar. If her mother were still alive and saw the situation in Iran Inn today, she would probably smile in her grave. After she left the altar, and Jeonyang spaced out in the courtyard, and she couldn't help but be shocked. It was the day of the battle of the 36 clans. What is the successor doing instead of resting? Thinking of this, and Jeonyang inched closer and whispered, "Successor, are you worried about the ranking battle tomorrow?" No. Shinshin didn't turn around and instead looked at the bright moon quietly. Why is that so? I might be silly and I may not be able to share your burden, but I'm willing to be a quiet listening ear. And Jeonyang's tone was gentle. Shinshin had helped the Iran and develop well and prosper within.
Okay, I'm going to hop off for a bit. I will be back on in a couple of hours. Then I'll be playing Final Fantasy. So I'll